The meeting of the City Council open. This hybrid meeting is being conducted on a multi-locational basis in accordance with the Local Government and Election Wales Act and the arrangements for multi-locational meetings agreed by the Council, which will operate alongside the Council's standing orders to ensure that we continue to take democratic decisions in an open and transparent manner. Please note that today's meeting is being filmed for live and subsequent broadcast by ways of the Council internet site. The images and sounds recorded may also be used for training purposes within the Council. As you will see from the agenda, generally the public seating areas are not filmed. However, by entering the meeting room and using the public seating areas, you are consenting to being filmed and to the possible use of those images and sound recordings for webcasting and for training purposes. As well as being broadcast live, a recording version will be available on the Council's website within 24 hours of the meeting. With those members present in the Council chamber, please use their microphones to contribute to the meeting, and please remember not to get too close to the microphone and also to switch off the microphone when you have finished. Can I request that all of you turn off your cameras and mute your microphones when you are not speaking to ensure that no unnecessary background noise will help with the audio and visual quality of the broadcast. The hybrid meeting is the same way as ordinary meetings, and members should conduct themselves accordingly. For the benefit of everyone watching on the live stream, when I invite members to cast their votes remotely on a particular item, they will do so electronically using their voting facility in the chat function. The votes will be automatically counted and are recorded on the system, but individual votes that are not identified on the screen on the chat room poll is not available on live stream for public viewing. However, I will announce the number of votes for and against and abstentions before I declare the results. For those members present in the Council chamber will vote in the usual way by a show of hands. Welsh translation for the proceedings can be provided upon request. We move into item 1, apologies. I have received apologies for absence of the following councillors: Councillors Cleverly, Sterry, Councillor Townsend. It says will possibly attend later as she attended the school governor's AGM. Are there any further apologies? Councillor Evans.
Presiding Member, Councillor Mogford is stuck with a hospital appointment at the moment, so he's hoping to join later online.
Okay.
Chair, if I may, Councillor Jordan is currently on holiday.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Whitehead.
Presiding Member, also Councillor Malcolm Linton. He may get you late, but otherwise this is apologies.
Thank you. Are there any declarations of interest at this stage?
Yes, Presiding Member. Item 5, I want to say, the motion, and that's linked to my employer, so I won't be discussing that particular item nor voting on it.
Okay, it's noted. Councillor Aliwami? No, this is declaration of interest.
Yeah, Presiding Member, it's just on the May's last PSPO. I live within the area, so it's just declaring an interest.
Okay. Councillor Perkins?
And the same for me, I live in the area for the PSPO, May's Glass there.
Okay. Same with you, was it? Right, okay.
Just on that, sorry, if Pill is mentioned in regards to the PSPO as well, I live within the area, but I don't really deem that to be an interest, so to speak, because it's a public area, but there you go anyway.
Yeah, it's better to be safe than sorry you've declared it anyway, in case there's any issue. Is that covered? There's no one else on that? I haven't any announcements to make at this stage anyway, or tonight. Right. I will move to item 2, the minutes. The minutes from July the 16th of July, 24 are before us. Are there any point of accuracy? Councillor Aliwami.
Thank you, Mr. Presiding Member. Yes, I want to refer to the page 9 in the minutes. where it says comments of councillors.
Yeah, go on.
You okay?
Yeah.
Sorry, it's disappearing. Excuse me. Sorry, I had it right here. Yeah. Where it says comments of councillors on page 9, it says Councillor Al-Nawami raises concern in relation to the Greater Gwent line, and then it goes on. It says Councillor Al-Nawami did not want to raise a notice of motion, but wanted to add a comment. And then it doesn't say anything about the comment that I wanted to raise, nothing at all in the minutes. So I was wondering if I could suggest a few words just to clarify what comment I made.
I don't know if that's germane to the debate that would happen, so I think that I can't accept that.
It says comments of councillors, Mr. Presiding Member, but actually doesn't say what I said, anything. And I'm only saying that I've got about 3-4 sentences here to clarify what I said. If I can raise them to council, and you can decide on them.
So are you saying that those minutes are not correct then?
Yes, they're not correct as I stand, no.
Okay. Yeah, does anybody else agree with what Councillor Al-Nawami was saying, that those minutes are not correct?
There are comments there recorded by other elected members.
I think the issue is, I understand it's important to you, but these are not verbatim reports, so it's not as if it's every item is discussed. If there are very issues, I don't know whether the legal officer can make a comment on this, but that's the way I see it at the moment.
Well, as the presiding member says, the minutes are not a verbatim record of what was said. They're a summary of the salient points raised during the debate. Obviously these minutes were published in advance, and there was the opportunity for members to raise any issues with them beforehand. I mean, my advice to the presiding member would be, if there's a consensus that the minutes are inaccurate, then we can take a motion to that effect. If there isn't that consensus, I would suggest the presiding member asks for a proposer and a seconder that the minutes be carried.
Councillor Evans?
So just trying to be helpful here. For clarity, I've got page 9 here, and under comments, it says, Councillor Al-Nawami fully supported the report, but pointed out safety of women and girls for paramount, and street lighting within the city should remain for their safety, and that's on page 9 of my report. And there are comments of Councillor Al-Nawami earlier on in the debate as well, so I'm a little bit confused about what hasn't actually been mentioned. You've got on page 5, for instance, comments of Councillor Al-Nawami raises concern in relation to the Greater Gwent Turbine Pensions Fund and their source of funding. So I'm not sure what else he's expecting to be put in the minutes. Councillor Al-Nawami, what's your proposed amendment to the minutes? Have you got it written down?
Yeah, if I may read, to follow where it says he wanted to add a comment, he urged that the note circulated by the Newport Palestine Solidarity Campaign needed to be responded to by the Council or the Greater Gwent Pension Fund. This note published a summary of investment and figures on the involvement of the pension fund in schemes operated in the Israeli-occupied Palestinian territories.
And that's your proposed amendment?
Yeah.
Okay. I'd suggest the presiding member asks if there's a seconder to that amendment.
Just clarify what comment I made.
You've moved that now as an amendment there. Is there a seconder? Right, okay. Right, okay. Yeah, right, and anyone else to speak on that? Yeah.
Thank you, Mr Presiding Member. I do remember Councillor Anumami making those kind of comments, and in fact the leader promised that he would actually look into the issue of the pension fund and how things are invested. So I do really think that he was along that line and he did say those things, and that's why I've supported him today.
Yeah, but that's not saying that the leader wasn't going to look at that. What Councillor Lamley was saying, that the minutes are not correct. Is there any further comments on this, please? Yeah. Okay, there's no other amendment, so can we take a vote on what Councillor Lamley is moving? Against? Move for. All those for what Councillor Alamami, there's two at the moment. Those for? Yeah, four I said, yeah, four.
Presiding Member?
No, wait a minute, clear. Let's clear
Please can you clarify
yeah.
what we're voting
for? Councillor Alamami has moved a motion and it's been seconded. Those agree on what Councillor Alamami has said. Please vote now.
And those online? There are a large number of members online. Can we get a clear indication from those who are joining us online whether they vote in favour of Councillor Al-Nuami's motion? At the moment, we've got 2 in favour and 1 against, and there are more members than that joining us online.
Okay. It's only 3. That's carried then. Councillor Allen's motion is carried. Right. We'll move on to all agree the minutes as they are now with that. Sorry, Councillor?
It's matters arising, sorry, Presiding Member.
What, from the minutes? Well, we're on the minutes now.
Are you dealing with matters arising now, then?
Out of the minutes, it's a correction to the minutes, is it?
No, it's not a correction to the minutes. The minutes are correct as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
But it's matters arising from those correct minutes.
Yeah. We got to take the vote of the minutes. Are they correct?
Absolutely.
Right. Okay. Right. Let's move on. Yeah. So can we move that the minutes are correct, please? All those. Sorry, I wish different people want to speak in. Right.
Sorry.
Councillor.
Now we're going to take a vote on whether the minutes are correct, but is that including the amended version?
It is, yes.
It is, yes. Okay.
Thank you for that clarification.
Right. All agree the minutes are correct. Right. Thank you. Right. Any matters arising from the minutes? Councillor.
Thank you, Presiding Member. On page 13, I wasn't present at the time last week because of technical problems that this council faced. There was a question at any time because I was unable to attend. I wonder if I could read it and then ask the leader a question on it. It says that you recently stressed the importance of all...
No, you can't.
Okay. Well, on question 13 then, Leader, I still haven't received an answer to the question at any time.
I did, Councillor Routley, I did respond to you to say that wasn't a question.
It wasn't... But it got presented the following question at any time as you were unable to join the meeting. And those minutes have been moved. So I don't know. They've been moved, they've been accepted.
If you've had an answer off the officer, I suggest you speak to...
I haven't had one in writing.
You
and
did
it was to the leader of the council. It was to the leader of the council. I'm sure we'll sort this out. Thank you, Prayer. Thank you.
It would be helpful, yes. Leader, do you want to quickly say something on this?
First, Councillor Ratley wasn't here. Second, It wasn't a question. Put it in question and I'll answer it.
Please, not across the chamber. Let's move on, please. I'm sure you'll have some debate on that later on. Maybe not tonight, though. Right. We move on now to appointments.
Thank you, Presiding Member. Governing body appointments. I've got some extra governing body appointments other than those who are on the list. Llanwyn High School resignation, John Guy, appointment Hugh Knight. Mount Pleasant Primary, reappointment Dilwyn Gurney, resignation Yvonne Forsey, appointment Christopher Carter. Easwell and Somerton Primary Partnership, resignation John Guy, appointment Gregory Morgan. High Cross Primary, resignation Councillor Bev Davis, appointment Councillor Yvonne Forsey. Malpas Church in Wales, resignation Robert Green. Malpas Church in Wales, appointment Robert Pitt. Pentrapoeth Primary, resignation Councillor Rhiann Howells, appointment Tamsin Simmons. Rogerstone Primary, appointment Christopher Lacey. Ysgol Gyfun Gwent Isgoed, appointment Councillor Rhiann Howells, resignation Christopher Chapman. The outside bodies, they're as are on the list. Newport Transport Board, Councillor Mal Linton and Councillor Kate Thomas to be appointed there. And all the other names are as on the list. Council is asked to receive and approve the nominations for representatives as listed in the report.
Thank you, Councillor. Is there a seconder? Councillor Reeks.
Thank you, Presiding Member. I can second most of the appointments. The governing body appointments, I can't second any more than the three that have been announced on there, so I haven't had information about the rest of them. If you can maybe read something.
Okay, thank you very much.
Can I second it then, please, Presiding Officer?
Yes, well, second it. Right, okay, thank you. Right. We now proceed to the vote. Will all councillors please cast their vote? Now stand with all those in favour. Are there any against? 4 against. Yeah. Okay, yes, that's carried then. Right, we move on to item 4, police issues. I'm pleased to welcome Superintendent Jason White to the meeting. Thank you, Jason.
Good evening, everybody. So just a couple of things, just an overview, a highlight of crime levels within the Newport area over the last few months. So we've seen, pleasingly, a 14% reduction in overall crime since the end of July throughout August, and there seems to be, or we're on course for further reductions for the month of September. Most notably, 38% reduction in shoplifting, which is particularly pleasing because we had a month-on-month spike in that particular crime type throughout Newport. We've seen a 20% reduction in vehicle crime over the same period, a 34% reduction in residential burglaries, and 10% reductions in robberies. The issue of Suron bikes, I know that the last meeting, as a city, we've seized a significant amount, around 150 plus Suron bikes. That continues to be the case. We have bespoke operations east and west of the water, where we're targeting known drug dealers and individuals who are running drugs for people within estates. The one thing I wanted to bring to attention is the work that both the council and the police did in response to the atrocities in Southport at the end of July. Understandably, the Muslim community felt a great deal of concern through, I have to say, a lot of misinformation online, social media, which heightened concerns within the community. We were really quick as a force and as a local authority to act by putting together a community tensions monitoring group to monitor and share information and dispel any rumours that were circulating within the communities. I chaired a mosque leaders group, again, to get that message of reassurance out to our communities. I had discussions with the Muslim Council of Wales around how we can improve our engagement with our communities within the Muslim communities. And then most importantly, we undertook a much more enhanced engagement where we were attending prayers, particularly on a Friday, where myself and other senior members of Gwent Police attended in person to get those messages across to those vulnerable communities. And my understanding and the feedback from those communities that it was well received. Quickly moving on, Operation Firecrest. I know I've talked about this previously in terms of the joint operations with the Council's trading standards. To date, we've seized in excess of £1.5 million worth of illegal tobacco and vapes, predominantly from the Pill area of Newport. Talking of Pill, in the last month, we've executed 3 drugs warrants. In terms of mice glass, I know there's something that we've talked about previously as well, is that we've also in the last month undertaken 3 drugs warrants in the area where we've got one individual serving a 3-year sentence, another individual undertaking a 12-month sentence, and we've got 2 on remand at the moment awaiting further sentences. As we speak, we've got a plainclothes operation going on within the Bettis area tonight. And in mice glass, that continues to be the case as well. We've had some really good outcomes in terms of seizure of drugs, but also seizure on bikes. Talking of Bettis, at the last meeting, I talk about an operation called Op Diadem, which we targeted an established organised crime group. We've got 9 individuals at this moment in time who were charged and remanded, 7 of which are still in prison. That has had a profound positive impact on ASB levels within the Bettis estate, particularly around the shopping centre. And again, as we speak, I've got operation including officers going on there this evening. Operation Forester, which is the cannabis cultivations. Pleasingly, for over the last quarter, we've seen no recurrence of any cultivations within any derelict buildings within the city centre. However, what we have seen is that has now sort of migrated into private residential properties, both in Bettis, Maindy, Alway, and indeed Pill. Again, Eastern European individuals, and we've had a number of successes in the last few months in relation to that. And finally, Newport Central. There's been a lot of talk in the press around the bus stop and the bus station being an area where supposed zombies exist. What I would have to say is that there's a fair bit of misreporting on there. There was one recently which was purported to be Newport, which showed several drunk individuals damaging the shop. From further interrogation of that post, that I was actually located in Scotland, not Newport. So again, very much like I said earlier about the misinformation, it's about challenging that misinformation. I thought a zombie was coming through the door. But just reassuringly, I talked previously about dedicated patrols through Operation Lumley, which is a Home Office funded initiative. That continues to be the case where we've got 2 locations within the city centre that's currently subject to that. We also did a day of action using colleagues from local authority in August, and we've actually got a planned week of activity this week where we're targeting street drinkers, street beggars and the like, which I can obviously update you on further. But interestingly, in the last month or so, we've seen a 25% reduction in crime in the city centre, which is really pleasing. And then just finally, schools. I think I've talked about previously around the changes in the school liaison, school beat policy. So this month, September, we've seen the introduction of Gwent Police's new approach to dealing with school liaison. So school liaison effectively now falls within the neighbour policing teams around a three-tier approach. So depending on the needs of that school will depend upon the frequency of contact and engagement. So that is very well being embedded as we speak. So there will be some much more enhanced neighbourhood engagement with schools within the Newport area. And that's it.
Right, thank you, Superintendent. I now call upon the leader for any announcements you'd like to make. Sorry, questions to the Superintendent, sorry.
Thank you, Presiding Member. Can I just say thank you very much, Superintendent White, for your report. Really pleased to see a 14% reduction in crime overall and a reduction in crime in the city centre. And I would wonder if we could work more collaboratively, the Council and yourself, maybe me and you have a meeting about the social media element of increasing anxiety and concern, which is it's feeding itself, and raising major concern amongst maybe the older demographic who are seeing these social media posts and believing that it's all true. And it's negative voices against this city and against yourselves. And I wonder if you and I could work more collaboratively about addressing this particular point, because it's not helping you, it's not helping this city, and it's raising concerns amongst our residents, which is sometimes unnecessary.
I completely agree. Public confidence is key. We've now got, I think I said in the last meeting, we've now got a dedicated corporate comms officer working within Newport, dedicated to the area. And you would have seen, hopefully, through social media, particularly Facebook, a far more increased amount of positivity of work, just to try and change hearts and minds. And then any negativity is to challenge, particularly if it's misinformation. So absolutely, it's about working together more closely to get that one true message across to our communities.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Lacey.
Thank you, Presiding Member. Chief Superintendent, between January 2020 and December 2022, Gwent Police recorded 21,558 victims of domestic abuse and 16,780 serious sexual offences, which averages around 20 domestic abuse and 15 serious sexual offences per day. Stark numbers, given we know that many of these instances will not even be reported. Given the alarming numbers, what steps are Gwent Police taking to monitor and assess the effectiveness of efforts to tackle violence against women, domestic abuse and sexual violence in Newport? How are the actions being aligned with the Gwent Regional Strategy 2327? And are there any areas where more could be done to improve the monitoring, prevention and victim support? And finally, are there any new strategies or resources being considered to strengthen these efforts locally? Thank you.
I think it's really important to emphasise at the start of this new financial year, as the Superintendent for Newport, I introduced a new approach called DA Quality Matters. So what that entails is that senior officers from inspectors and above within the Newport area, we review and dip sample a vast majority of domestic abuse incidents to look at thematics, to make sure that we're getting it right, that we're offering the support to victims of domestic abuse, that we're looking at alternative methods as well, so domestic violence protection notices, and that conversion then into orders, but also taking more positive, robust action then with offenders, so arresting individuals as well. That then feeds into our vulnerability group, which is a force group, and again, what we've created is domestic violence abuse champions within force, and within Newport, a lot of those feedback is then being fed back to officers, supervisors, to make sure that we are learning those lessons so that victims get that support first time and the right time. That falls very much in line with both the force and the All Wales Violence Against Women and Girls, but there's much more that we can do as well. Working more strongly with our partners around raising education, something when we talk about City Safe on the Friday and Saturday night, the one thing that we've already started doing with licensees is raising awareness and educating staff to identify the telltale signs of stalking, of behaviour which is inappropriate towards females. And going forward, we're looking to extend that further then with taxi drivers. So there's very much lots in the pipeline in terms of what we're looking to do to address violence against women and girls.
Thank you, Superintendent. Councillor Howells.
Thanks, Presiding Member. Good evening, Superintendent White. It's more of a ward-specific question that I've got, and it relates to Tredegar Park and Marshfield. We recently joined a group called Friends of the Road to Nature in Coed Cernew to see some of the work they've been doing with children's groups there and other community groups and biodiversity projects they've got planned for the future. But one big issue that was raised was the areas regularly used by dirt bikes, so continually crisscrossing over the area, often at unsocial hours, on a very regular basis, both on the road itself, on the meadow and on the adjoining Welsh Government land. They're causing a lot of damage to the wildlife and the infrastructure like the fences and gates, and they're quite hazardous to other users, which obviously does include children quite a lot. So please could I ask what police steps could be taken to reduce or remove the issue? I know police are aware of it, but it's quite underreported because of the nature of it, because, you know, more often than not, you can hear it beforehand and you see the damage afterwards, but you can't sort of catch people in the act. Thank you.
Yeah, and it's understandably frustrating as well. I think the first thing is making sure that people do report, so we know what the scale and size of the problem that we're facing. In terms of what we can do, you mentioned the effect on wildlife. So there's several resources that we can tap into. So in relation to wildlife, we've got a dedicated rural crime team based within the east, which covers Newport and Monmouthshire. What I can do following this is make sure that Inspector Hannah Weldy makes contact, and then we can then look at how we can address some of the issues that you've raised, not just through using neighbourhood policing resources, but also using rural crime. They've got access to drones, which is an excellent bit of kit, as we all know. But I think in terms of that finer detail is A, getting it reported, times, dates, and then we can then target resources into those areas at the times that they're most needed. So perhaps if you leave that with me, and I'll get Hannah then to make contact outside of this.
Okay, Councillor Morris.
Scheme of things, but I rise about the problem that we have with people setting off fireworks, and I'm speaking as a pet owner myself, and pet owners contact me. The absolute trauma that it causes to the pets, and then the knock-on stress effect it has to their owners. Is there anything that we can do to get to the people selling these fireworks? Because in some areas, bonfire night starts in September and finishes in December. Everybody knows that November the 5th is going to be loud. Pet owners got time to take the appropriate action to protect their pets. But when it goes on for weeks and weeks and weeks, it causes stress and trauma far beyond what it should. Is there anything that we can do? Any hope we can give them?
So we have a dedicated operation every year, which has been going on since, I can't remember, but Operation Bang, which essentially is Halloween bonfire night. And what we do is a lot of, not just reacting to incidents on night, but it's very much around preventative work on the weeks and months running up to that. So for me, it's very much around early engagement with those shops, but also working closely with trading standards. The assurance what I can give you is that Inspector Rowley-Giles is aware of the issues, and I think it may well be worth perhaps a conversation that he has with you in terms of what him and his team are doing, working with trading standards and other partners to get into these shops early enough to educate and, where appropriate, prosecute. Very much like Zero on bikes, which we talk time and time again, we can't just simply react. We have to swim further upstream and actually then get to the people selling these items. So it's about supply and demand and preventing that going out onto the streets to, you know, inappropriate children effectively who are causing these concerns for yourself and other residents and people in the area. So that's an action I'll take back, and then I'll get Rowley-Giles to make contact with you outside of this.
Thank you. Councillor Howells.
Two questions, if I can. Some time ago, you responded to a question of mine about deployable CCTV and said that was now available to the force to use. I'm told that that isn't the case, and it's still with South Wales Police, and local inspectors and their teams are not able to get use of it, so I'd be grateful for an update on that. Secondly, in relation to the Lisworry ward, which I represent, the biggest ward in Newport, includes the Spitty Retail Park as well, as you'll know. Alarmingly, the inspector confirmed that about 65% of his resources for neighbourhood policing currently go to dealing with issues at Spitty Retail Park. What can be done about that so that Spitty Retail Park and the businesses there are protecting themselves, so the police are protecting the local residents as the neighbourhood police are supposed to be doing? Thanks.
Okay. In relation to your first question, I know categorically that we've got 10 portable CCTV cameras which can be used for both Gwent and South Wales Police. I know that because the Chief Superintendent who's responsible for the Digital Services Division within the region is an officer from Gwent. And I've had direct conversations with that officer who's confirmed that there is a bidding process, there is an application process because of the demand, understandably. But those portable cameras are available. So I'll sit down with Rowley Giles, get some clarity around his understanding, but my understanding is that they are available. So that's the first point. The second point, 65%, that's fairly excessive. I don't know where that figure has come from, but that 65% wouldn't necessarily just be for Spitty Park. That would be for Alway, Ringland, and other areas across the east. So I would suggest, and I can get you the stats outside of this, but that percentage will be significantly lower than 65%. What I would say around the businesses is that we've got design-out crime officers who can and have effectively been targeting, that's the wrong word, but working with shops, particularly if they've been subject to crime, ASB, to look at how we can then target, harden and reduce the opportunity for crimes to take place. We do it not just in Spitty, but we do it in places like Tesco Express and others that's been targeted by shoplifters, for example. And we've seen over the last 2 to 3 months, shoplifting have actually come down, as I alluded to earlier. So 65% is excessive. I'll get you the exact percentage outside of this meeting, but in terms of the support that we can provide businesses and, more importantly, staff as well, there are things in place to address that.
Thank you. Councillor Whitehead.
Thank you, Presiding Member. Good evening, Superintendent. Firstly, just to confirm that the lack of messages I'm getting does substantiate the claim that ASAP is indeed on the down in Betty, so to speak. We do have a persistent underage offender that sporadically causes issues, but other than that, it has been very, very good, and I think the plaudits are deserved on that for the police. My second point is you will be aware of some physical assaults along the Monmouthshire-Breconshire Canal around the Malpas Bettis area down through the town, or the city as it is known these days, of an elderly man and a female jogger. I'm just hoping that you can reassure the residents from Malpas and Bettis in particular that there will be a visual presence of the police there just every now and again, just to reassure people that they can use that beautiful area as they wish in safety.
Yes, so thank you for the first part of the question. The second one is yes, I can give some reassurance that Hannah and her team are aware, and there is dedicated patrols in and along the canal, because I, like yourself, have been made aware of those incidents, albeit sporadic, and there doesn't seem to be any patterns, but the officers are patrolling those areas either on foot or on their bikes, so just by way of reassurance.
Thank you.
Councillor Watkins.
Thank you, Presiding Member. Superintendent White. I was at a meeting last night which a resident raised an issue in regards to the Woodside complex, which is vulnerable people, sheltered housing of some 190 properties. There's been a number of approaches by individuals to some of these residents, and they are rather concerned of very little seems to be done, although you have had the crime reduction officer attend on a number of occasions. I'd be grateful if the ward members could be told if there are any surgeries that go on there between the crime reduction officer or your other officers that we would like to attend to keep abreast of the situation. And I wondered, I doubt if you'll be able to tell me whether anything has been done in regards to the individuals which approached, but I'd be grateful if any information could come to the ward members. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So this was brought to my attention by a member of the Over 50s Forum, probably about 4 weeks ago. I was given an update by Inspector Hannah Welty that the Crime and Disorder Reduction Officer, Claire, holds monthly meetings in Woodside. And what she will say is that that doesn't necessarily reflect what is being told, certainly what I was told by the member of the Over 50s Forum. What I can do outside of this is to make sure that any further monthly meetings, which isn't just police, it's partners as well, so housing are invited because a lot of it is housing issues and tenancies and stuff like that. I'll make sure that you've got an invite or certainly made aware of those meetings, just so that we've got, you know, a good understanding of exactly what the issues are going on down there. But we are working very closely with housing in relation to that.
Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Presiding Member. Superintendent, as you probably are aware by now, Allway Primary has been broken into and the damage is on another level in there. They also stole piggy banks belonging to the children. I'm really bent out of shape, as you can imagine. We've got a cluster going on in Allway, and in fairness to Roland Giles, they are aware, they're doing what they can, their hands are tied. They have gone out with Newport City Homes and they've put housing antisocial behaviour orders on children because they were under 10 that was causing damage. The children that's caused the damage to the school are teenagers because kids couldn't have done the damage that's been done. We've had racing along Aberthorpe Road where the parked car has been smashed into, where the wheel is now facing the wrong way. Can we have something along there to keep an eye on the school and the road? It's being used as a rat run because it's easy access and there's so many different places they can go. All in all, I am up to there, as you know, with the constant phone calls of what's going on the ward, and you can't be everywhere and you can't fix everything. But if you could feed back to Newport City Homes when they do a walkabout with your officers, maybe they should tell the councillors so they can go with them and get the true facts from the residents. Because they won't speak to you unless they got their elected members, no matter what ward, with you. Okay? Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. I think just by way of reassurance as well, so we've got a proactive neighbourhood enforcement team, PNET. So they are a resource for the East LPA, or for the whole of Newport. I say reassurance, so for the last 6 weeks to 2 months, their default position is Allway Maindy. I've put some new blood into the neighbourhood policing team, and I think that's been reflective of the results that we've been seeing over the last 2 to 3 months. That's now been supported by members of PNET. I'll speak to Roland Giles outside of this to make sure that if there's not already a plan in place, that a patrol plan will be in place around Aberthorpe Road, Allway Junior School, but also calling the support of our traffic officers as well. And I dare say that some of that will be Suron bikes as well, which will come back and forth Allway and Liswary. So leave that with me. I'll speak to Roland Giles and we'll come back to you in terms of what we've got planned to do.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. Councillor Ali Mahmood.
Superintendent, can I ask what the position is with respect to heavy goods vehicle parking in residential areas? To cut a long story short, Superintendent, we've got residents like in Cairo Road, and it's a very difficult road, as you well know, with it's a classified road, parked on both sides, and we've got this recovery vehicle which has taken to park on that road at various points of it. Now, sort of my work has taken me to the Office of the Traffic Commissioner of Wales, who advised me quite clearly that HGVs have operating centres and that they should not be parking in residential areas. You know, and I thought that was great, really. Convey that answer to the resident, and for a while they were free of the problem, except that out of the blue an email came and started to say that recovery vehicles are exempt, or they do have exemption. You know, when you look at them really, I mean, and actually Cairo Road is not the only one. The road I live on, there is one, and there was another one the other day. I don't feel really that HGVs belong to residential roads. I don't think they should be parked there. You know, accessing the road is fine, but parked overnight and doing it night after night, I mean, you're almost running a business from there. So I'd like to know, you know. Thank you.
Well, let the superintendent. Right.
Do you want to go first, and then I'll...
Can you stand up so people can see?
Sorry, most of the recovery vehicles you see on the side roads are 7.5-ton licence, and as I've got a car licence, I can still drive one. But because of their nature of business, they can park in residential areas because on 24-hour call-out, even if they're off duty, they can still park. They have permission. They are exempt. I've looked into this myself in the ward, and being in transport, you can't get around it. So I don't think the superintendent, you know, I'm not speaking for you, sorry, but there's not a lot the police can do about it. 100%. 100%. But as a legal proposition, there's nothing the police can do about it. Even if you go to traffic, the licensing for recovery, they're allowed to park it because of emergency call-outs. And it's mostly up to 7.5 tonners, which car drivers of a certain age can still drive. So they're not always deemed to be HGVs.
Yeah, so it's that the key thing is 7.5 ton, isn't it? So have we, I suppose the obvious question is, have we actually knocked on the door and had conversations around, is that the most suitable place for them to park? Is there anywhere else that they could park? I suppose that's the first thing, isn't it? As the residents actually identified who the recovery belongs to have those honest conversations. That's the first thing that I would do. But that's what the councillor has just said is actually correct.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Jones? I should have stayed standing up.
I should have, yeah, sorry about that. Thank you, Presiding Member, Superintendent. It's a quick question, really. Maybe we can share some information for all councillors. Each month, we receive a monthly crime stats for our wards. Now, I've posted this on Facebook because members of my community asked for this information, so I have posted it. But I received on the 30th of June from a local community support officer an email saying to cease, to stop doing it. However, this is where I need clarification because I understand other councillors post this, and I know the Bride Community Council in my ward post it as well now, because they did ask me to share the details directly with them so they could post it. And I said I've been asked to stop, and then they've started. So just where did we start? Because I have got an email that tells me to stop doing it. Can you just give me clarification, please?
Yes, as far as I'm concerned, and something that I did with the previous leader was, I think we've got a meeting coming up this week or next week. And in readiness to that, in terms of crime stats, is something that we're more than happy to prepare, and I think it's really useful for you as local councillors to be aware of spikes and trends within your area, and then you can then share that with local residents. Leave that with me, and I'll make sure that's rectified.
Okay, the last speaker we've got now is Councillor Horton.
Thank you, Presiding Member. Good evening, Superintendent. Mine is just some feedback about one of your officers, Hamad Ali, sorry. We had an incident in work where a lady needed assistance, and he did an absolutely excellent job. He was extremely professional and made sure that she was very, very well looked after. So I just wanted to feed back to yourself so you can feed back to the team so that the officers do know that we do greatly appreciate the work that they do and the support that they give us. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And it's really good to end the meeting on a high as well. So I'll make sure that feedback is fed back to the officer concerned. Thank you.
It's nice to end on a high note like that, isn't it? Yeah. Okay. Well, can I thank you, Superintendent? Now, there's no other police question. Oh, you've got to be quicker than this, Councillor Hure.
You know, Presiding Officer, I'll always take an opportunity. I'd like to thank the Superintendent for the work that his colleagues have done in Brecon Park recently. You had a great deal of antisocial behaviour up there. Some of it's criminal, some of it's just low-level stuff, but it's causing great distress to the residents. But I do thank you for your earlier answer about the portable anti-crime cameras. And I'll certainly put us on the list for that one. But as I said before in Council, we have antisocial behaviour. There's always somebody else who's aware of who's perpetrating the antisocial behaviour. So when we looked at Brecon Park last week, we distributed leaflets through your officers to ask all the residents if they could just tell us what's going on. And if we can get that little bit of information, I'm sure it will give you enough leverage to give us some peace in those areas. Thank you, Superintendent.
No, thank you. And yeah, just on the ASB, worryingly, Monmouthshire has actually saw a slight increase in ASB over the last several months, whereas Newport, across the board, so the city centre, Newport East and Newport West, month on month over the last 3 months, has actually seen a downward trend, which is really pleasing as well. So yeah, I'll take those kind comments back as well to the team. Thank you.
Okay, no one else now, so we'll move on to item 5. Thank you very much, Superintendent. Notice of motion, the winter fuel allowance. Councillor Evans is going to introduce the item and possibly move formally the motion.
Thank you, Presiding Member. And the motion is as follows. The UK Government's decision to remove the winter fuel allowance will leave up to 30,000 pensioners in the Westminster constituencies covering Newport wondering whether to heat their homes this winter or put food on their table. This cut means that potentially more than £4 million being taken out of their pockets. This Council urges the UK Government to reinstate the winter fuel payment in full to support pensioners in Newport. I think the Chief Executive of Age Cymru, Victoria Lloyd, sums up the situation nicely. And she said, I quote, Age Cymru firmly believes that cutting the winter fuel payment this winter, with virtually no notice and no compensatory measures to protect poor and vulnerable pensioners, is the wrong decision. People have been sharing with us how they'll struggle this winter without the winter fuel payment. We have heard from people who have long-term health conditions, who need to have a warm home and will need to cut back on food to ensure that their homes are warm. It is clear from the public outcry that scrapping the winter fuel payments for so many vulnerable people is not only exceptionally short-sighted, but utterly callous. With fuel prices increasing and many pensioners living just above the threshold to qualify for pension credit, this policy will undoubtedly cause a large number of pensioners to switch their heating off this winter, from Orway to Alterine, from Rogerstone to Ringland. Prior to the general election in 2017, Labour councillors across the country held up pledge cards promising to vote against the cutting of the winter fuel allowance. Not that it was going to happen or did happen. You can imagine the uproar in this chamber if we had announced this dreadful policy. The Chancellor has urged the 800,000 poorer pensioners who do not claim this pension credit to do so. There are two problems with this. If they did manage to claim, it would wipe out a lot of the savings. And secondly, she knows that the application form is 24 pages, 15 sections and 234 questions, which will of course deter people from trying to claim it. The shameful decision to scrap winter fuel payments risks creating a fuel poverty crisis among pensioners in Wales. Now, Labour-led Council Stockton voted unanimously to condemn Rachel Reeves' cut to winter fuel payments. And recently, we had this quote: "I have been sickened by revelations of donations. It grates against the value of the Labour Party, created to fight for the needs of others, not self. Meanwhile, pensioners are having their fuel payments taken, risking going cold. I trust this conference votes to change this." And that was a quote from a Labour MP called Rachel Maskell. This debate is a chance for councillors to show that they have the courage to put their constituents' interests before their party interests. I sincerely hope you support it. I so move.
Who's going to second the motion?
Mr. Presiding Member, I formally second the motion and reserve the right to speak later in the debate.
Okay. Does any member wish to propose an amendment?
Thank you, Presiding Member. I wish to propose the following amendment to the motion. This Council notes the UK Government's decision to means test the winter fuel allowance, and that might leave some pensioners in a difficult financial position this winter. Newport City Council will work tirelessly to support those affected pensioners in Newport via this approach. 1. Identify those pensioners most in need. 2. To work alongside third sector organisations to identify those pensioners not claiming pension credit despite their eligibility. 3. To maximise the use of the Welsh Government's Discretionary Assistance Fund, otherwise known as DAF, to support Newport's pensioners during this winter. 4. To investigate bespoke plans to offer further support this Council can provide. Lastly, we put, in the meantime, residents can call the DWP Pension Credit Helpline on the number provided. I will circulate this in written form so all councillors can read at their leisure. Could you just pass one and circulate it? I know that Councillor Evans' a motion which ostensibly asks about writing a letter. We don't think writing a letter is good enough. The writing letter is not going to keep those pensioners warm who will find it a struggle this winter. So, as a council with no responsibility over winter fuel allowance, the only response we can do when any UK government of whatever party makes any decision is to work out what it can do in that moment to support those residents most affected, including our pensioners. As Councillor Evans points out, some pensioners will be eligible for pension credit and might struggle. The DWP helpline is there so they can call it, and the DWP callers will help any pensioner go through that application form if they need it. So that's practical help to those pensioners right here, right now. Also, we know it's the most unclaimed benefit in the UK, pension credit, and we know that many pensioners who are eligible in this city are not claiming it, so it's really important we identify those pensioners and get them claiming that pension credit as quick as humanly possible. But as Councillor Evans, I think, noted, some pensioners will be above the pension credit line and therefore not eligible for pension credit, and for the winter fuel allowance, as he pointed out. So it's important that we use all our other means, like the Discretionary Assistance Fund, like working with third sector organisations, and anything this Council can do to support those pensioners with any provisions we already provide or will provide in that support, because the last thing I think anyone wants, regardless of their political view, is any pensioner struggling and making awful choices this winter. So we're not Westminster Government, whether it's Labour or Conservative. We're Newport City Council. We're here for Newport's residents. We're here for Newport's pensioners. Let's not make this party political. Let's help them now.
Thank you, Leader. Is there a seconder?
Second, Presiding Member, if I can Speak now.
Yes.
So I'm pleased to second the amendment. It proves practical and action-orientated response to the challenges faced by some of Newport's pensioners. Rather than simply politicising the issue, our residents want to see tangible steps that will help those in need, and this amendment offers a clear plan to help that happen. While the original motion raises an important issue, it focuses only on a letter to the UK Government. We need to act locally now to ensure our most vulnerable pensioners get the support they need this winter. This amendment lays out a meaningful approach by committing Newport City Council to identify the pensioners most in need, work with third sector organisations to ensure eligible pensioners are claiming pension credit, and to maximise the use of the Welsh Government's discretionary assistance fund. These are immediate practical steps that will directly benefit those affected. By seconding this amendment, I'm supporting real action to make sure pensioners in Newport don't have to make the impossible choices between heating and eating. It's about making a difference now with the resources and partnerships available to us. Let's focus on supporting our residents and not just making political statements. Thank you.
Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Presiding Member, and I'm glad to see that we've got some sort of agreement across the chamber here, which was the intention of the motion in the first place, to raise and highlight this thing. And I believe that there are a number of questions on here which we need to answer, but I believe that the Conservative Group will support this and will ensure and help ensure that our pensioners, which is ultimately is about, across the city do not go cold or hungry this winter.
Thank you. Councillor.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Presiding Member. Could I thank you for the sensible approach and your group, of course, on this matter. It's important. However, I will say that in the past, when we were in government, it was often the case here that the Labour group would bring forward a motion saying that they would want the leader to write to the Prime Minister. Now, you obviously said that you don't think that's a good idea or a worthwhile idea. But in the past, it always was, when we were in control in Westminster, and it suited the Labour Party to kick us for it. Well, now, you're not just wearing one boot, you've got two boots on now, because you're in charge in Westminster, and you're in charge down there, in that assembly. So I think, really, that, yes, this is great, and I'm happy to support it, but I think there should be a letter to the Prime Minister asking him to reconsider.
Councillor Morris.
Thank you, Mr. Presiding Officer. My colleagues and I weren't going to speak on this issue because we thought it's got absolutely sod all to do with Newport City Council. But as the debate has gone on and as the leaders come up with the amendment, which I think is an excellent idea, but yes, I think your hearing aid's not on. No, I'm not being sarcastic. No. Sorry, I've thrown myself there.
Councillor Arimami, please, not across the chamber.
Let's see. Not one person, I don't care what colour your politics are, not one person in this chamber wasn't appalled by the decision to hit those weakest in our society. You know, we can all point fingers at everybody. It should never have happened. All I would like to ask, Leader, looking at this well-drafted document, can we put something in there where people can be encouraged to come forward if they know somebody that is struggling to heat themselves, a relative or even a neighbour, encouraging people to look out for those who are going to be hit the hardest and the worst by this? Can we fit that in there somewhere, that other people should have a phone number if they're concerned that somebody is not heating themselves? Let the strongest protect the weakest.
Councillor Routley.
I too support this amendment. Can I say that I once, after making an admission, I supported Sir Keir Starmer as well. I did support him. I supported him in his ideology. I supported him when he said that any withdrawal of the winter fuel allowance would have severe consequences. And if we cut it, he highlighted, and I supported him, it would end with winter-related illnesses, and it also significantly increased the risk of mortality rates amongst pensioners in the UK. He also went on to say that it would be a cruel thing for any government to do. And here we are today, united that that decision that was taken, it was a political decision, he didn't have to make it, but the political decision that was taken in Westminster has united this country like no other decision has. The trade unions, the Conservative Party, the pensioners are all united that this vicious attack on penny pinching is really, really grating and people need to take action. The pensioners, they can't withdraw their labour, but watch out, they could withdraw their votes if they are able to do so. We're facing one of the worst weathers this winter. I support this amendment. I'm not quite sure how we're going to do it. We have 30,000 pensioners. I don't know how many out of those 30,000 pensioners are going to be coming to us for assistance. I don't think we have the staffing. But however, let's hope we do. And I certainly want a united council here. As my colleague has said, in Wales, you run it. In Westminster, you run it. You have influence. You now have joined up influence. Let's pay the pensioners. Let's give them the heating allowance. And let's not make them choose between eating and heating. Because our food banks are either going to be very, very busy or our hospitals could be overrun.
Councillor Hurahan.
Thank you, Mr. Presiding Officer. A Tory's memory seems to be very, very short. They are the underlying problem why pensions are in such a poor state today. In 2011, they had a bright idea. They decided to move the pension from RPI to CPI. Now, retail price index has historically always been above consumer price index. So I've looked back over the last 10 years, and I chose 10 years because it's very difficult to go back with CPI beyond that time. In 2014, a single person's state pension was approximately £5,881.20. I say approximately because they're very variable, the pensions, prior to the new pension coming in recently. Over this 10 years, the RPI has risen by 55%. The CPI has risen by 34%. So it meant that our £5,881 today, if it was RPI'd, would be worth £9,115. The CPI only gives us £7,898. A shortfall in every pensioner's pension in the land, be they rich or poor, of £1,217. 3 times the heating allowance. That's what the Tories have taken off our pensioners in the last 10 years. They continue to take it off us every year because, unfortunately, we've inherited, the Labour Party, a £100 billion deficit. A £100 billion deficit was recorded this week when it shows that the country, the £22 billion black hole that's been identified, is little or nothing.
Point of order, there's not a £22 million black hole left by the Conservatives. Over 50%.
Councillor, no one interrupted you. Please don't interrupt the speaker. Please, carry on, Councillor.
So we've £100 billion to pay back as a country before we can start to put it on the road to prosperity. I hope that the parties opposite listen to Keir Starmer this afternoon when he talked about a brighter future, and I hope over the next 5 to 10 years we can deliver that future which by all people, pensioners, young people, middle-aged pensions, people will be better off. Thank you, Mr. Presiding Officer.
Councillor Jones. You're on.
Assumed. Yeah, thank you, Presiding Member. I thank you for the leaflet, the letter, the information, but can I draw your attention to a local resident of mine? I had a phone call this week. She just lost her husband of many years. She's worried now about cost of living, obviously, and heating and all the rest of it. She had a simple question. Who do I bloody phone in Newport Council to speak to somebody? So it's okay telling her this information, but as a taxpayer all her life in Newport, she's still asking me, who in Newport will listen to me, discuss it and give me help? Can you share that information with me so I can pass that on, please?
Councillor Druitt.
Presiding Member, we may not be able to do anything about what's happened in another place and decisions taken there, but I'm proud of the work that Newport City Council is doing and will continue to do to support pensioners. Information about this is available at various on the city website. There's the older persons webpage and the information about the social services that is run by Newport City Council is available there. There are several events coming up in Newport, one in September in Dufferin, and there's the Let's Connect Newport event at the Riverfront Theatre in October. Newport City Council offers care and repair services for older people living in their own homes independently. Newport City Council Social Services runs an adaptive programme. There's a reality theatre for the over 55s operating in Newport. County and Community Extra Time Hubs operates for the elders. There's Action for the Elders. There's free swims operated by Newport Live for the over 60s. Gym classes and other sports activities are tailored for the elderly. There's Ask Sarah, Letter from Louise, Cwtch Cymru, Echo Friendship Group. There's Newport Over 50s Forum, Sporting Memories Clubs. There are many, many things that Newport City Council is doing to support the elderly and will continue to do to support the elderly, and I'm proud of that.
Thank you, Councillor Druitt. Councillor Harvey.
Thanks, Presiding Member. Obviously, I support the motion, goes without saying. But as an aside to this, a few of us are having training on discretionary assistance fund so we can actively go out and help our residents, which ultimately is what we're here for. Besides doing the training so we can actively help, myself and my colleague Tim, today's my colleague, tonight is my husband, you know what I mean? But we give out over 1,000 meals a month, free of charge, from the Celtic Manor, courtesy of business in the community. There are many, many ways that we as councillors can help our residents who actually took the time to go and put an X next to our name. We don't have to have motions, we don't have to have causes or this or that. Do you know what we need to do? We need to get back to reality. You see someone who needs help, just go and bloody help them. It's not hard work. It's only hard work when you're trying to make political points. This got nothing to do with politics. This got everything to do with helping those less fortunate than ourselves. And as I always say, it is there but for the grace of God.
I'm glad you got your husband and your partner the right way round on that one. I got Councillor Howells.
Thanks, Presiding Member. Yeah, it sounds like a great amendment. The Council is going to be putting valuable time and thought into how best to protect its most affected pensioners this winter. It's a practical amendment to the motion, and I think that's to be welcomed. I think the main point I wanted to make sort of follows on from Councillor Morris's point, really, that everyone here, it's important that all of us act as signposts, and we can do that, particularly via social media, but also ward surgeries and other face-to-face means to direct the pensioners to the schemes and information that can help. You know, we know from talking that some of this is already out there from Westminster and Welsh Government schemes like DAF, but also everything Councillor Druitt just outlined, and, you know, clearly what's been spoken about, further council work that's to come, as indicated in this amendment. Thanks.
Thank you. I got Councillor Screen.
Thank you, Presiding Member. I support this amendment because it's a practical amendment. It's doing something for those who are vulnerable. Okay, we're not writing letters, we're actually doing something really positive to help people. Well, I'm sure that this council will protect the vulnerable through the winter. But I think it's important that residents and pensioners appreciate the context behind this. Why have we got to where we are talking about this motion? Why have we got here? And I'll tell you why. 3 reasons. We've had 14 years of underinvestment, underfunded in our public sector. Our public sector is on its knees. 14 years. Secondly, we have mismanagement of the COVID pandemic. Millions and millions of pounds wasted on unusable PPE equipment, contracts given to the friends of the government, money wasted. Some estimate that up to 50,000 avoidable deaths because of the pressures on the NHS and the way that the pandemic was managed. And then we got Brexit, a disaster by any standard. You know, we haven't got a decent trade agreement with the 3rd largest trading bloc in the world. And that's estimated to cost us about £20 billion. And we'll still be paying into Europe by 2030. So that's the context behind why you're talking about this motion and the amendment. We got here because of 14 years of their government mismanagement of the economy, and people should remember that and not forget. Thank you.
No comments, please. Councillor Whitehead.
Thank you, Presiding Member. I mean, why do we always do it? Why do we always go back in time? We are here now, and it can be quite grating. They did this, they did that. Where we are, where we're at, and we are trying to address a decision that's been made that will impact lots of people. I can understand, to a point, Councillor Evans tendering his motion, but I think the leader is refreshing. I met him last week, and he is a refreshing person, and it's great that he's so engaging. And his amendment is very good, and it's something that we can all respond to. It's no different to write a letter, actually, because this will be seen as an act that we're doing something about it. So, in a way, we don't agree with what's happened in Westminster. So I think it's very clever because it answers the question that he's being proactive. And I like this approach. It's a modern approach and it's a caring approach, and it's a good sign for the future. So I fully support the leader's amendment. It's excellent, and I think it's down to us all to go out and about. And we know our areas, we know our wards, we know who are who, and those amongst us that will be struggling. And we can put the information out there. We can signpost people, and I'm happy enough to do that, as I always am. So yeah, this is positive from Councillor Batuni, and it's to be applauded. So for that, I say thank you very much. I think we should all respond to it in a positive way. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Whitehead. I've got Councillor Force.
Thank you, Presiding Member. I would like to further highlight the work done by my Labour colleagues to provide practical support to residents We make ourselves available to meet with residents on a regular basis. In Rogerstone this year, we're providing advice sessions again this year, as we did last year. We'll have an expert available to ensure that all residents get the help which is available to them. And I'd like to propose that we move to the vote.
Is there a seconder to that?
Sorry, Presiding Member. I mean, I don't want to wish to be here for much longer, but I do think it's important that other people have their say. We finish off the debate in a civilised and frank manner.
Councillors moved vote, and was there a seconder to Councillor Force's vote? Right. Right. Yeah. We'll have to move to the vote now. It's been moved and seconded.
Point of order. Point of order, Mr. Presiding Officer.
Wait a minute, I'm asking.
Point of order.
Wait a minute.
There's been a motion that the vote now be put, which has been proposed and seconded, so the vote on that needs to be taken immediately.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
this trumps a point of order.
That's what I was going to say. But if that vote goes through, the debate is killed once again. An important debate raised by the opposition. If that vote goes
I'm sorry. The Constitution says that the vote be taken, and it be seconded. Please, Councillor Morris. I'm only going by what the Constitution said. Leader, are you going to be helpful here or what?
I would like to sum up on the amendment. It doesn't kill the conversation.
Leader, you need to sum up after the vote's been taken.
Yeah, sure, but it doesn't kill the conversation because it goes to the substantive. This is about a vote on the amendment. No, I know the rules.
Right, we can't have, I'm sorry, we can't have any further debate on this. There's been a proposal and a seconding, so
we have got a vote on that now. Please, not everybody speaking, please. Those in favour of the amendment, please.
Sorry, Presiding Member. Sorry, this is getting far too confusing now. As I understand it, please correct me if I'm wrong, this is to cut the debate short. This is the vote we're having now.
This is in relation to the debate on the amendment.
This is a debate on the amendment.
No, this is a closure motion.
Oh.
They've moved a closure motion.
No, they've moved that the vote on the amendment now be taken.
Which is a closure motion.
On the amendment.
On the amendment. Well,
once again, members, the Constitution says that where a motion like this has been proposed and seconded, the vote must be taken immediately. There is no scope for any further debate on the amendment.
I'm going by what the Constitution says. It's been moved and seconded, and the vote got to be taken there.
If the vote fails, then clearly the debate continues.
Okay, Councillor Marsh, is this going to be helpful?
It's clarity, I think, what's happening in the chamber. So are we voting on the fact of a vote to vote, or are we voting on the amendment? Because that's what I think is happening in the chamber at the second.
We're voting on the vote on the amendment to be taken. I'm not worried what they're saying. Listen, can we have a bit of peace here, please? This is getting very difficult. It's difficult for me as well, okay, up here. Right. The legal officer is saying quite clearly that it was moved, the vote be taken and seconded. We've got to move to the vote. That's the end of the news. We've got to vote.
It's a vote that the vote now be put.
Right. Well, I've got a list of people here, Councillor Army. Please sit down. I'm sorry. I've got a list of people here that want to speak, but it's been moved, vote and seconded. It's got to be taken. End of news.
Councillor Al-Nuami, there is no scope for you to speak at this stage.
No,
there is no scope for it.
Councillor Army, please. We all might have personal views on that, but the Constitution. Councillor Army, please. We might have all personal views on whether you want to speak more about this amendment. I understand that. But what is the Constitution says if the vote be taken and seconded, we've got to go through it. Well, that's very kind of you, isn't it, eh? Right, can the vote be taken?
Right, so, members, can I just explain this for absolute clarity? What you are voting on is the question that the vote now be put on the amendment. So all those in favour? That's carried.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Right. Right, leader, yeah, the leader has a chance. It has been a fair debate on this, mind to be honest. There's quite a few people have spoken, so leader, now will you speak?
So my understanding of the rules is now that becomes a substantive motion. We just voted on the amendment, so still people can speak.
No, you voted that the vote now be put on the amendment. So after you've summed up, leader, the vote will be taken on the amendment.
On the amendment?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Now
you
it
get the
becomes a
opportunity to sum up now, then the vote's taken on the amendment.
On the amendment,
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
it becomes a substantive motion.
If it carries.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if it gets carried, yeah.
So then people can speak on the
We,
substantive.
all we voted for was
I
the...
know, I'm trying to explain to them
Yeah.
they can speak on the substantive. I know.
Yeah.
So, to answer the questions before the people speak on the substantive motion, including Councillor Al-Nuami, is to answer the questions put to me from Councillor Morris about a number. There's, as Councillor Drips outlined, there's a number of ways, but there's contact centre, there's the library, and we'll consider other ways we can make that more accessible to pensioners moving forward. We have to think it through. Your Councillor rightly points out there could be a huge demand. We don't know the demand, but we have to understand that and kind of get how we can meet that demand. You know, we only got finite resources. It's a point well made. I understood that. Look, I try to avoid the, apart from the debate about the amendment stuff, you know, I thought it was a really good conversation, and I thought it was really adult, and I welcome those conversations. I've stayed away from the Westminster stuff. I think Councillor Fairweather made that point. We can have debates within the chamber about the Newport City Council remit, and you just agreeing with us and us disagreeing with you, that's fine. But on national government proposals, you know, I don't think it's that helpful to anyone of the residents in Newport. If we can all try to work together to help them, I think that's a far better way forward. Does that mean we'll all agree on everything? No. And that's fine, and that's legitimate. So I hope that answers Councillor Fairweather's point. Councillor Jones, I tried to address that with Councillor Morris's point about being more proactive in our help, and I'll speak to Emma and Pat about comms and about, but you're signposting it to us. Councillor Harvey rightly pointed out there's some training available, and we'll try and circulate that to all councillors if they're so interested in accessing that training to support all our pensioners. There are pensioners, they're Newport's pensioners, and regardless if they vote or if they don't vote, we're here for them. This council's here for them, and I think that should be the overwhelming message. And now I hope others can say that message in the substantive. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. Right, we move now to the vote. Right,
sorry, President.
Sorry?
I think I have the right to reply at the end of...
You get the right to reply on the substantive motion, Councillor Evans.
Right, okay. Right, the vote be taken now on the amendment. All those who agree with the amendment, please show. Right, I'm just waiting for in the chat box there. 100% there in the chat box. A clear majority. Well, you abstaining or vote against? No, he's against. He's against. One against then. One against. Okay.
So that now becomes the substantive motion.
Right.
You might want to read that out again and invite comments on it.
The original motion now for context was what Councillor Evans mentioned. The UK government's decision to remove the winter fuel allowance will leave up to 30,000 pensioners in the Westminster constituency covering Newport wondering whether to heat their homes this winter or put food on their tables. This cuts means that potentially more than 4 million being taken out of their pockets. This council urges the UK government to reinstate the winter fuel payment.
Sorry, are we reading the right one out?
No. It is confusing the way the Constitution is written, and I've had quite a long debate with a legal officer, but it's got to go back to the original motion and to be reading that. No.
Point of order.
So the motion is now...
Point of order, Chair.
But you said earlier that. You said that earlier on there. No. All right, sorry, that's my fault. My fault. So, right, sorry. All right, I misread what was being said earlier on. Right, you all got the amendment in front of you, so there's no need for me to read it out to you, is it, clearly? Right, so we move now, as that the substantive... Sorry, Pat?
So the amendment is now the substantive motion.
Yes. Okay. Right.
It's like pulling teeth, I gotta be fair.
Sorry? Yeah. Right. Okay. Let's. Yeah. Any comments now on the substantive motion? Right. Moved and seconded now, is it?
Right. Leader, I really do feel sorry for you. You are in a very difficult position. I can understand that. Right? In a different world, that amendment would have been put by a different party. And you would have been putting an amendment that the government should reverse its decision and reverse it immediately. Because let me tell you what's happened here. Even from the Welsh and the Newport perspective, we losers on this. Not that, just the pensioners who no longer receive their fuel payment. Let me tell you this. I can't understand a minister standing there being interviewed about accepting a ticket for Taylor Swift. And she said that was a difficult
Councillor Army, you're not Councillor Army, wait a minute, you don't address it to the leader, you address it to the council.
You.
Well, you can, that's
I'll
fair.
address you. That was a difficult one. I've got a young daughter, and I had to accept the ticket for her. Well, I'm a pensioner. I've got a young daughter. She likes Taylor Swift, and I might have wanted to spend my £300 to buy her that ticket. And others, in worse position than I am, would have used that £300 to pay their energy bills, which are rocketing and rocketing and rocketing. And what's happening? A Labour government, I'm going to use Neil Kinnock, right? He said a Labour council, he did at the time, hiring taxis to deliver redundancy notices. We've got a Labour government here, and its first two acts was, one, to saddle families with more children than two, by keeping the cap on them, pushing 300,000 children into children poverty, and then follow that within a couple of weeks of taking the winter fuel allowance from 10 million pensioners, pushing quite a few of them into fuel poverty. And I've been in this council listening to people lecturing me on fuel poverty for the last 2-3 years before you. So don't tell me you can solve your problem with an amendment like that. This council ought to take a very, very clear position on this and demand that these cuts to pensioners should be reinstated. I tell you why, from the Welsh perspective.
Councillor Army, your time is up, please, now.
Well, let me finish.
No, I'm not letting you finish. Your time is up. End of a sentence now, and that's it.
400,000 pensioners in Wales at £300 each makes about £120 million. That money is...
Councillor Army, please sit. Councillor Army, please sit down. Thank you. You're not the only one. Right, anybody else want to? Councillor Gordon.
Thank you so much. I'm really glad that we've gone with the amendment today. I think it's important. And people don't want to see us fighting and squabbling across this chamber, but I don't know what's happened here with the collective amnesia. It's a bit worrying, isn't it? Because You seem to have forgotten that the Conservatives enacted some of the cruelest benefits cuts this country has ever seen. Councillor Evans, you mentioned about people with long-term illnesses. What about the bedroom tax that cut £1,200 a year from the benefits of people impacted, disabled and the long-term sick the most? What about the two-child limit, which impacted 11% of kids in Newport, brought in by the Tory government? Where were you then? Why weren't you up in arms then? Where was your outrage? I don't think any of us saw it. I'm glad that we've all agreed that the best option is to go and help our residents, to get out there, give them advice. It's what we have always done. It's what we've always committed to, supporting the most vulnerable people in our society. It's nice to see you finally getting on board. Thanks.
Corton, Councillor Watkins.
Thank you, Presiding Member. I supported the amendment and continue to do so. Can I just suggest that information or a dedicated phone line be put in Newport Matters next, so every resident within Newport knows how to get in touch with somebody that can give them assistance in filling out the forms? Thank you.
Okay, I'm sure offers it. But when you come back, Councillor Routley.
I support the substantive motion. I also supported the first motion, which led to this motion coming. I also welcome the refreshing attitude from the leader of this council, whereby collaborative working for the benefit of all our residents are now going to take place. This has always been in the mind of the opposition, but we have a refreshing new approach now, and that working towards that end, we have a serious issue that's actually looming now in the city, and that's this winter fuel allowance payment that's been taken away. So let's work on how are we going to ease the problems caused by it. So what I would be asking the leader to do, and I'm sure he's listening, is can we put something together for all the members of the council on Teams so we can listen in, so we can have some advice? Councillor Harvey has made a great strive in 1,000 meals a week. I think that's commendable and to be applauded. I think that there are other initiatives that are commendable and to be applauded. But these are individual initiatives, and unless we pool all our mental resources and physical resources together, we won't see the collective benefit for the residents of Newport. We need to act fast, we need to act now, and we need to protect those who are vulnerable in Newport. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Routley. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Presiding Member. I started with interest the last few comments for a few councillors, and I didn't want to say too much tonight on these issues, but with the leader promising to take us forward and open discussions and not look backwards, it's still surprising one or two of his councillors take us back in a history lesson for the previous 14 years. It's a bit disappointing. And fellow councillor with the RPI and CPI, I take it from his response and his information he shared with us tonight that he's going to campaign to get that reinstated and changed with the government. Obviously now we've got a Welsh government and a Labour government, in UK government I mean. And I'd just like to finish on this. I'd just like a shared declaration. I did buy all my own clothes for tonight.
On a point of order, Mr. Presiding Officer, as that last question was aimed directly at me, am I allowed to respond?
Yeah.
Well, of course I'll campaign for this Labour government. And if you really listen to the end, I talked about the brighter future that we're going to deliver as a Labour Party. We're not going to go backwards. We can't go backwards. You bankrupt the country. We only way forward is to improve on our productivity. You've had 14 years of history. I don't want any more history. I want the future. Thank you, Mr. Presiding Officer.
So can I reply to that?
No. Let's move on. Anybody else wants to speak now on this? Councillor Marshall, sorry.
Yeah, thank you, Presiding Member. It's just basically to highlight a few things there, just to say that on top of the work that's been highlighted within Council, there is other places for support. Members should be aware of the Gather Newport Facebook page and others. They are actually advertising about the community warm spaces, so it's just to advertise that they're there as well, to make sure that we as members, as well as our community groups, can get full access to those, and to also try and alleviate some of that loneliness that is in some of our communities by bringing people together, and also support from energy companies, housing associations, things like that there. So start looking around. As members, we have the right to also receive that information and provide that out. And I know part of that, and I'm sure the leader will as well, trying to basically focus some of that work towards unpaid carers as well, that are looking after some of the pensioners in our community, on top of some pensioners that are unpaid carers themselves, looking for after parents or looking after for other people in their family. Thank you.
Anybody else wants to speak on this amendment now? Yeah. Sorry? Yeah.
A few councillors posed some questions. Councillor Al Nawami, I didn't get the Taylor Swift point, I must admit. I'm happy to be explained what that was. But on your point, which I thought was quite pointed at me personally, and I think the bit that resonated with me, I said I could solve this problem. I can't solve this problem. I'll be honest, I can't. What I can do, and what we can do, and what we can do as councillors and as officers, is do what we can as a council to support our residents. So I said I can solve it. That is absolutely categorically not true. I can't solve this. I didn't decide this. I can't solve it. What is within my remit, within this group's remit, within this council's remit, is ability to support as much as humanly possible. Councillor Routley, I did say, yeah, we've got lots of programmes, we need to join it all up. That's why there's point 4, because we need to think it through, because there's no point just rushing something out and it doesn't work, because you guys will come back at me, rightly, so we need to think it through. And the most important point, which is point 1, is we need to identify those individuals. That's key, right? And Councillor Jones highlighted one case. There's many more cases now. Councillor Harvey's had several cases. And I agree with your commending Councillor Harvey and everyone else who supports the free meals. Great job. Let's help our residents what we can. I can't solve it, though. I can't. But let's see what we can do together.
Councillor Evans?
No. Yep.
I did ask you if anybody else wanted to speak on this motion, and then Councillor Hewering coming, so no one's indicated, so Councillor Evans. And then we go to the vote then.
Thank you, Presiding Member. I'm sorry, it was completely unnecessary to try and close that motion. It caused a lot of confusion around here, totally unnecessary, and actually we're all agreeing. I know it might not sound like it sometimes, but we are in general agreement. We want to look after our pensioners. We want to ensure that they've got food on the table and they're heating in this winter. And ultimately, that's what we're here for, is to look after them. So I'm not going to get into this politics about Tories of 14 years of there or 25 years of Welsh Labour ruining the economy and down in Cardiff Bay or anything like that. Ultimately, we want to settle. That was quite subtle, though, wasn't it? So ultimately, we are going to support this, and I'm sure everybody else in this council chamber is going to support it as well.
Right, we move to the vote then now. All those in favour, please show. I'm just waiting for the chat box to come up. 100% there. Any against? Any abstentions? One abstention. Well, that is yeah, okay. All right, so that's carried then. Thank you very much. Now we'll move on. I move to item 6 now, the Welsh Language Annual Monitoring Report. Councillor Druitt.
Dwi'n hapus I rannu adroddiad yma heddi. I am happy to share today's report. Following the implementation of the Council's Welsh Language Standards March 2016, Council has a statutory duty to produce an annual monitoring report in compliance with Welsh language standards under the Welsh Language Wales Measures 2011. This annual report represents the Council's 8th year of implementation of Welsh language standards and, in compliance with statutory requirements, provides an overview of the Council's progress meeting the standards during the financial year ending 2024. The report includes key performance information required by Welsh Language Commissioners to be published annually, highlights significant achievements during the year and identifies priority areas for future work. The draft report was published online by the deadline 30th of June to meet statutory requirements and will be updated immediately once agreed by full Council. Key highlights from the year include Cymraeg Gwaith initiative, a dedicated seconded tutor to facilitate Newport City Council Welsh language training within Newport City Council in partnership with College Gwent, funded by National Centre for Learning Welsh. A new website, Welsh language domain and email addresses. Many Faces of Welshness campaign, worked with Urban Circle to produce video resources highlighting and celebrating the diverse nature of Newport's Welsh language community and why Welsh is important to people of Newport, how it's used and the options available for those considering a Welsh medium education. The report also identifies priorities for the next reporting period, including an increased focus on recruitment, retention and development of Welsh speakers across all service areas within the Council. Developing a St David's Day event to celebrate Welshness, Welsh culture and Welsh heritage. The role of Councillor John Harris, elected member, Welsh language champion, has been instrumental in helping to highlight the importance of Welsh across the city, whilst continuing to promote Welsh language within the Council and across its workforce. In conclusion, I ask members to approve the attached paper and publish on the Council's website so the Council remains compliant with the statutory duty. Diolch.
Thank you, Councillor Drew. Is there a seconder, please? Do you wish to speak on now or reserve your right to speak later on? Oh, okay, right. Anybody else wants to speak up? Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Presiding Member. Of course, I'm more than happy to support this report. I believe that the Welsh language is important to us here as a nation. However, I don't consider that, we have this from the Welsh Government, about 1 million Welsh speakers. Well, somebody being able to say good morning or good night in Welsh, to me, isn't somebody that can speak Welsh. And the only way that we can improve Welsh education is we have Welsh primary schools and we have a Welsh secondary school, but we have to improve the provision in the English-speaking schools. And that is sometimes a difficult choice to make, because it comes down to what subject do you drop to put the extra Welsh lessons in to meet that requirement, to get a better understanding of the Welsh language, so that more younger people are speaking Welsh and are using Welsh outside in the community. Because in all honesty, both my children went to St Joseph's High School and they both got GCSEs in Welsh, but only on a half-an-hour lesson a week. How can that possibly be good enough? I think that's something that we need to address. Whether it needs to be addressed down there in the Assembly or whether we can do something about it here locally, I don't know. But it's something that needs to be addressed, Pat.
Thank you. Anybody else wants to speak on this item? Right, we now proceed to vote. Would all councillors please cast their vote, starting with all those in favour? All those against? Any abstentions? One abstention on the screen. Oh, Councillor Ariami's not voting either. Okay, that's two then. Okay, the vote is carried. It's been nearly 2 hours that we've been in the council chamber. I don't know whether a lot of you would want a comfort break or not, or carry on. Carry on? Is that the consensus? Okay, fine. You know, I just make that offer to you. Right, we move on now to item 7, the City Centre Public Spaces Protection Order renewal.
Presiding Member, before I understand that some members in wards other than the 3 areas that I'm going to speak about may wish to ask for public spaces protection orders in their areas, and I'm happy to discuss this with them outside this meeting. The purpose of this report, Council is asked to consider 3 reports requesting continuation of public spaces protection orders, PSPOs, in 3 areas of the city, City Centre, Pillgwenthly, Maesglass. As Council is aware, PSPO is an order designed to prevent individual groups committing antisocial behaviour in public spaces, the type of behaviour that is persistent or continuing in nature and unreasonable. PSPO under consideration will provide the police and authorised council officers with additional powers to make people do a certain thing or stop acting in a certain way within the area of the order. Breaches of the orders can be dealt with by the issuing of fixed penalty notices or a fine via the Magistrates' Court prosecution. PSPOs in these areas are well established and have been supported in these communities for a number of years. These proposed orders look to enhance and improve on the orders that came before. Officers have reviewed the prohibitions themselves and redrafted them with the purpose of making them easier to understand for residents and visitors and more effective to enforce for officers and the police. The new approach to prohibitions in these orders can be summarised as follows. All 3 orders have prohibitions relating to causing behaviour causing harassment, alarm or distress, with the power to instruct a person to leave the area for 24 hours. Street drinking, with the power to take the can or bottle. Using, supplying intoxicating substances. The orders for the city centre and Pillgwenthly have a prohibition related to aggressive begging, and in the city centre this is extended to begging within 10 metres of a cash machine. The orders for city centre and Pill also have a prohibition relating to riding a bike or similar device in an inconsiderate or unsafe manner, and riding untaxed, unregistered off-road e-bikes or scooters. And in the city centre, this is extended to riding any bike.
Councillor Truitt, I'm sorry, but we've got to take each item separately because obviously they're different areas.
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
I'm just going to just summarise on the 3 of them, and then perhaps vote on each item individually.
Well, I suggest you, I know it's a bit repetitive, but I think, unfortunately, because they're 3 different items and 3 different areas,
right,
we must go along with that just to make sure it's right and proper. Sorry about that. It's going to be almost repeating some of the things.
Sorry, if it helps, I don't think you need to reiterate the basis of a PSPO for every single item, but because they're 3 separate items on the agenda, and because there'll be 3 separate council decisions, they do need to be dealt with separately. So my suggestion would be, if you've obviously explained the basis of the PSPO, and that can apply to all 3. You don't need to reiterate it. But I think if there are things specific to each PSPO, I would take them in order, have the debate, have the vote, and then speak to the next order and then the one after that.
What I was trying to do, presiding member, was actually summarise all 3 so that I don't need to repeat myself.
Yeah, but unfortunately, because they're 3 different items, we've got to do that because there might be someone in here who might want to raise an issue on that. So it's got to be 3 separates, unfortunately.
Yeah, I understand that. Okay. So, during the summer, officers have carried out a public consultation. The response from consultees has been overwhelmingly in favour of reinstatement of the orders, and officers were pleased with the high numbers responding. As soon as the orders are in place, officers from the Council will continue and enhance their programme of interventions, engagement and enforcement. It's expected that residents of these areas will see increased action from partners to deal with antisocial behaviour.
Councillor Leader, rather. Seconded. Do you want to speak?
Yep. Seconding on item 7, which is, I would believe, relates to the city centre item.
That's right, yes.
Yep. So this is an important proposal announced by Councillor Druitt. I know it's much talked about, and I think on the previous council meeting and online, and it's on residents' minds as well, about the antisocial behaviour that is in the city centre. This is council's response as well, and the powers that we have to help start addressing some of those problems in the city centre, particularly around aggressive begging, which I know upsets law-abiding citizens as they go about their daily business. So this is the council's response, and I hope we get unanimous support for this item and proposal.
Thank you, Leader. Right, we now proceed to, unless anybody else wants to speak on that. Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Presiding Member. We've had this in place now in various forms for possibly, 10 years? And it really is a pity, that we have to keep doing it. It's a sad reflection. But what concerns me most is we had this consultation, but only, out of a population of 150,000, 160,000? Only 117 people had any kind of comment to make, and the biggest worry for them was the e-bikes and scooters that you see around the city centre. I'm fully supportive of this, and I really hope that we can get to a position where we don't have to put these restrictions in place in the city centre, because people are living their lives properly and respectfully for others. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Councillor Fairweather. Councillor Al-Rami.
Thank you, President Member. Just to welcome it formally, welcome its renewal. I think Councillor Fairweather has been with us about 10 years, and it's really has made a difference, particularly to the drinking, the unauthorized drinking. A bit disappointed with the number of responses. 113 is not a great number. I'm not sure what we can do about that. The sort of bicycle thing to feature in this, and that is really one of the problems that people still complain about, particularly people above a certain age when they suddenly meet with people on bicycles through the pedestrianised areas. Apart from that, I think, it's just something we would welcome. And, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Al-Rami. Anybody? Councillor Evans?
Just very briefly, Presiding Member, the Conservative Group will be supporting this. I've already made comments when it came out to the member consultations, in case anybody thinks I'm not interested in this subject. I've already done that, and we certainly hope it works. It's not perfect, but we will be supporting it.
Okay, Councillor Jones.
Thank you, President Member. Obviously, we all welcome any improvement to our city centre, to welcome all our shoppers back into the trade centre. My question would be, how quick will we see this new proposal adopted? Will we see the results? How can we measure the results? When will we expect our first reports showing improvements, please?
Anybody else wants to speak before? No one else? Oh, sorry, Councillor Howells.
Thanks, Mr. Presiding Member. I'm grateful for the Cabinet Member's opening statement in regards to public space protection orders. We fully support these measures in other wards, and a Cabinet Member may recall me raising the need for public space protection orders in our ward, so I will contact you after this for a discussion. I'm grateful for you being open to that. I fully support these measures and the amendments that are made for the city centre, which I hope work and improve the area so residents feel comfortable and safe. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry? You want to answer the question? Oh, sorry. Yes, sorry.
Sorry,
Leader.
There was a timeline question. How quick would we get a response on showing the
I don't know whether the Cabinet Member or the Leader wants to answer that. Cabinet Member?
That's a question that's, it's, you know, how long is a piece of string, isn't it, Chair? But we've noticed improvements already, and, you know, I'm just expecting continuous and further improvements.
And we're moving in the right direction. That's the main thing, isn't it? Exactly. Right, so we move to the vote then, unless anybody else wants to speak on that then. Would all councillors please cast their vote? I think that's right. That's one abstain, but it's carried anyway. Okay. Right, we move on to item 8.
So, Maze Glass Public Spaces Protection Order. So the area of the public protection order has been increased, and there's the new order prohibits use of the lane behind the shops.
Seconded.
Second, presiding member, declare an interest. It's in my ward. I know other ward colleagues will want to speak, but this has been long needed. We did a walk around with the police, crime commissioner at the time, not the new one, and you know, it was clearly evident antisocial behaviour and intimidating behaviour for the law-abiding citizens going about their daily business. So this is a long time needed, particularly around the shops.
Okay. Anybody else wants to speak on this? Councillor Marshall?
Yeah, thank you, Presiding Member. Basically, as my colleague has stipulated, when we were going out for the renewal of the PSPO fairly recently in the last year, it was recognised the fact that it was such a wide area and scope that needed to be looked at, just because there's certain areas people were literally on the boundary and thinking, well, we're on the boundary now, we can do whatever we want on that side of it, which is a shame. But obviously this expansion now is called for by the members of the public when we door knocked. It is something that's wanted by the community. You know, as Councillor Falwether said, hopefully, you know, in future we don't have to have these measures, but until such time, you know, it gives the powers to do things and to act on that. But also this new one also clarifies a lot of the rulings as well, to make sure that it is clear in understanding, so that for the enforcement side of things there, it is much easier, because there was complications in the last one, but this hopefully clarifies that situation as we move forward. Thank you.
Councillor Fairweather.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Presiding Member. Again, this is another long-standing order for the Mize Glass area, and you know, you said today that you've had to clarify things and put a new area in there. But surely what we should be looking at here is prevention, and why these people are doing what they're doing down there. Putting in these orders all the time doesn't always work. It restricts, it makes people, or it encourages in people to push the boundaries, to break the law. So what you should be looking at now is prevention. And I know that Pat is the Cabinet Member for that portfolio. So perhaps, Pat, you can look at some kind of prevention measures in Mize Glass, in maybe engaging the people that are involved in this behaviour to ensure that we're getting a better result, rather than continually putting in restrictions across the city. Because that's what will happen eventually. We'll have these things everywhere, in every ward where we've got a problem. And they don't always work. So it's about prevention. It's about engagement.
Thank you, Councillor Fairweather. Councillor Perkins.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I fully support this SPO for my ward, and I am glad to see that it has been extended, and hope that it will encourage the residents to feel safer within the ward. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Whitehead.
Thank you, Presiding Member. As most of us know, PSPO is a last resort tools, really. We've previously applied for one, but a credit has to be given to the police. We were desperate for one, actually, that they managed to somehow force the lid on the angry bin and contain our problem at the time, as was alluded to this evening. And at the moment, there's a modicum of calm. But that's not to say that we wouldn't seek one again should this happen. It is a shame. And when you sit down and think of why do we get to this stage where we have to use these things, I do often think, similar to what Councillor Fairweather said, we have noticed that youth engagement in particular has eroded over the years, and I don't know whether that's down to the financial side of things, but it is a reality on the estate that our youth clubs used to have 80 members. Some nights would be there. That has eroded over time, and I don't know whether there's a conversation that should be held around do we go again on youth engagement? We need to distract these kids in a positive way. But yeah, I support fully. I mean, people are at the end of their tether when they apply for these things, and we've been there, so fully endorsed. But it goes without saying that maybe we should revisit what we keep the youth interested away from causing issues around places like shopping centres, etc. So, and I'm always willing and up for conversations like that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Whitehead. Councillor Thomas.
Thank you very much, Presiding Member. Yes, obviously the ward I represent, which includes the city centre, has had long experience of these orders in. Unfortunately, we still have problems. Going back to 2012, when I was first elected, I don't believe there was such a thing invented as electric bikes or electric scooters. Everybody here will know now it's a major problem and indeed an instrument of illegality in the way that they use these days, and the blatant flouting and dangers that they cause on our roads. I fully agree. It'd be great to see preventative things, but we know prevention is probably, think of the NHS. Wouldn't we all love to see a preventative NHS? But because of squeezes and various other things, a lot of things do get reduced to more of the firefighting end, and that is so sad. Maybe one day in the future. But I'll be quite honest, I can't envisage anywhere in the entire country which is free of any illegality or antisocial behaviour. And it was just going through my head, I mean, who can think of anywhere? Maybe the island of Lundy. It would have to be somewhere pretty isolated.
We must all go there then. Right, I don't think anybody else wants to make a comment, so shall we move to the vote? Will all councillors please cast their votes now? All those against? For, I assume, Councillor Ariwami, you're abstaining here? Okay, right, that's carried. Okay. Right, Pat, you're up again.
Yep. With regard to Pilgwenthly Public Space Protection Order, 3 prohibitions have been retained, namely those referring to spitting, urinating, defecating and procuring sexual services. In all these cases, colleagues from the police indicated a preference to deal with these matters using long-standing legislation. In relation to procuring sexual services, colleagues from the police indicated their unease at such an important matter being added as a prohibition within a PSPO that is designated to tackle with antisocial behaviour. This type of behaviour and targeting of vulnerable individuals is viewed with the utmost seriousness. The police prefer to deal with such matters using their full criminal powers. It's also worth noting that for the orders in this, in PIL, the area remains the same.
Thank you, Councillor Druitt. Is there a seconder?
Happy to second that. May I just comment on that as well?
Yep, certainly.
Just to declare an interest. I live in the area.
Yeah.
Everything's on my doorstep. But yeah, also, just going back to that report, a lot of, I think, the indicators that were removed in the PSBO, particularly the spitting, the defecation, etc., that was going off the advice of Gwent Police. So what I would say is the onus is on Gwent Police now to sort of enforce all of those issues that you alluded to, Councillor Druitt, and I'm happy to second that. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? I think there's a theme through all these public orders, isn't there, really? There's no question about that. Anybody else want to speak on that one? No, so I suggest we move to the vote then. Will all those vote for, please? All those against? Unanimous? I don't think there's anybody against that. Okay, we'll move on then to the item 10 with the Scrutiny Annual Report. The Chair of Overview and Scrutiny Management Committee to present this report, please. Councillor Hewering.
Thank you, Mr. Presiding Officer. I'm pleased to present the 2023-24 Scrutiny Annual Report to the Council. Scrutiny was introduced by the Local Government Act 2000, creating separate cabinet and scrutiny functions in local authorities. The Act requires scrutiny to report annually to the Council on the work that they've carried out over the past 12 months. Since the introduction of the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act, scrutiny has also had a statutory role to scrutinise the work of public service boards. The underlying principle of scrutiny is to ensure that decision-making is open, accountable and transparent. There are 4 scrutiny committees in Newport City Council, which are comprised of non-executive elected members. These are performance scrutiny committees for place and corporate, for people, for partnerships, and the Overview and Scrutiny Management Committee, for which I am the chair. The purpose of this report is to apprise the Council and other interested parties of the role of the scrutiny committees and their work during the 23-24 municipal year. The report highlights the important work carried out by scrutiny during this period. The committees carried out a range of work, including establishing the first policy review group since 2017. The performance scrutiny committees for people and places and corporate have continued to undertake their primary functions of monitoring performance in their respective areas on a bi-annual basis, alongside other items including statutory reports such as the Director of Social Services report and other significant reports, including the Replacement Local Development Plan and the first Estin Inspection Outcomes report since the COVID-19 pandemic. Both committees have continued to monitor the budget setting process. The Performance Scrutiny Committee for Partnerships has encouraged a meaningful and beneficial relationship between stakeholders and partners, and the committee considers reports from a range of partners, including Newport Live, SRS, the Education Achievement Service, and the Regional Partnership Board. The Overview and Scrutiny Management Committee continues to provide oversight for the Council plans and policies as necessary. The committee considered plans such as the electric vehicle charging strategy and the Strategic Asset Rationalisation Plan, alongside their many statutory and non-statutory annual reports. The committee also agreed and formed a policy review group which contributed to the ongoing work of Newport's future property services provision. Actions planned for the reporting period were completed and improved the security function. Future actions seek the continuation of this important improvement and to further engage stakeholders at every level in local democracy. I look forward to chairing the Overview and Scrutiny Committee for the remainder of the municipal year, working alongside committee members, ensuring that we provide an objective and productive challenge to the decisions of the local authority. I would like to take this opportunity to thank my scrutiny colleagues and committee members, cabinet members, officers of the local authority and partners for their continued support. I commend the report to you. Thank you, Mr. Presiding Officer.
Thank you, Councillor Hayward. Is there a seconder to the report? Leader? Anybody wants to speak on that report? Councillor Fairweather. Busy tonight, you are?
I am, yes, got to make the most of it. No, I'm retired, of course, it's easy. Thank you, Mr Presiding Officer. Of course, when I first arrived on this council, you were my first mayor, and at that time there were, I think, 8 scrutiny committees covering each cabinet member's portfolio. I do think now that things are better with scrutiny. I think the information that we get is informative, and members are able to make decisions based on what's put before them. And I know that many members here ask a lot of questions, and I will allude there to Councillor Marshall, who probably extends my meetings by about an hour and a half each time, despite being nudged by Councillor Harvey. But things are much better. I just want to say thank you to the officers for the work they do on the Scrutiny Committee. Thanks to the members who turn up. It's always good-humoured, it's always polite, it's always respectful, and I do think that we get the job done. And I just want to say this, it's good that the Cabinet members turn up and answer the questions. And I've noticed, since I've been chairing this committee, that Cabinet members don't always now need the protection of officers. They're able to answer the questions because they've learned their brief. They've got it under their belts. So, thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Fairweather. Anybody else want to speak on this item? No. Right, shall we move to the vote then, please? All those in favour? Anyone against? And we've got one abstain. It's a majority anyway, so that's been carried. We move on to item 11 now, the Standards Committee Annual Report. The Chair of the Standards Committee presents this report. Andrew Mitchell now, Chair of the Standards Committee, has presented the report, please.
Thank you, Presiding Member. I'm pleased to present the 23-24 Standards Committee Annual Report to the Council. The Local Government and Elections Wales Act requires the committee to report annually to the Council on its work that is carried out in the past 12 months and to note its future work programme. The guidance recommends that the Standards Committee's annual report is also submitted to each of the local community councils, and a copy is sent to the Public Services Ombudsman for Wales. The annual report covers the period from April 2023 until March 2024. The committee includes co-opted and elected members and is chaired by a co-opted member. The committee works together in a non-partisan manner to consider any reports, actions or recommendations made or referrals to the committee concerning the enforcement of the members' code of conduct and any matters concerning the promotion and maintenance of high standards within the Council. The report highlights the important work carried out by the committee last year. We met on 4 occasions during the reporting period. Each of these meetings were held on a hybrid or multi-location basis where participants had a choice about joining remotely or attending in person. The annual report sets out how the committee discharges its duties in relation to monitoring group leaders' compliance with their duty to encourage high standards within the party and council overall. The Standards Committee is committed to promoting high standards of ethical conduct among elected members and officers in order to maintain public confidence in local government. The committee will continue to proactively review all ethical standards and policies and procedures as part of the Forward Work programme. This year, we are pleased to report that no serious complaints of misconduct were referred to the Standards Committee by the Ombudsman during the period, and no complaints were referred for determination by the committee under Stage 3 of the Local Resolution Protocol. The training requirements for city councillors, community councillors and their clerks will continue to be monitored as part of the committee's Forward Work programme. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the committee members for their work during this period, and I look forward to delivering the work programme of the committee during 2024. Finally, I would just like to thank the officers from Democratic Services who support myself and my other committee members.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Can I just thank you, obviously, for all the hard work you do anyway. Although I'm a member of that committee, we do need a second, and I think it would be more appropriate if someone else was... So, who's going to propose? Councillor Ropley?
I propose removal of the report.
Okay, is there a seconder? Thank you, Leader. So that moves. I do apologise to you for the long time that you've been here this evening, Andrew. I have had a word with Democratic Services that if we have people that are coming to speak, they've been earlier rather than later. So I do thank you, and I thank you for all the work that you do, and the committee. Thank you, Andrew. Right, is there any comments on that report? Okay, Councillor Oakley.
Thank you, Presiding Member. It's not really on the report. My colleague spoke elegantly about the cooperation from members and the input they have, but from this committee and all committees, we wouldn't be as effective as we are if it wasn't for the support of the Democratic Services members right throughout. And I think it would be amiss of us not to pay recognition to the expertise and to the dedication that these staff give us week in, week out. And I'd just like to have that recorded as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ropley. Right, we've been moved and seconded, so we move to the vote. Will all councillors cast their vote now, please? That's a clear majority. Okay, we move to item 11. Thank you, Andrew. Leave it while it's quiet, will you? Right, item 12. Questions to the Leader.
I'll do my announcements first, Presiding Member, and then I'll take the questions in the balloted order. First, to announce that we know the Food Festival again is coming around this year on the 11th, 12th and 13th. Supper on the Friday night, all the stalls and music events on the Saturday and on the Sunday. I hope to see you there. If you can make it, it's a good celebration of the city, and also getting some great food, which I love paying for. Olives, which are not the cheapest, I'll be honest, but they're lovely nonetheless. The Earth, I was a great pleasure to join my Cabinet colleague, Councillor Corton, in doing the opening ceremony, I suppose, for the Earth, which is a Eisteddfod for under 25s, and it's the first time I'll ever come to the city, ever, and it's coming in 2027, and speak to Councillor Fowler at this point. He's absolutely right. It's about capturing the young people and encouraging the use of the Welsh language across the city. And we all agree we're a proud Welsh city, and we're proud of our culture and proud of our language. Sadly, I was one of the generation that missed out on mandatory Welsh, so I can't speak Welsh. I hope to learn in future, but capturing young people and encouraging young people to embrace that culture is much needed. I was also pleased to announce, along with the Cabinet and the Group, extra £600,000 to our secondary schools. I and the Deputy Leader visited every secondary school, spoke to every head, heard the pressures they're under, heard what some of the financial pressures are under in particular. We found extra money and injected it immediately into our secondary schools. Is it enough? No, but it will help in the short term to get through some of the pains they're going through and they're facing. It doesn't cover primaries. I'll start visiting primaries, which there are a lot more of over the coming year at the start of this autumn. There was a summer of fun and splash in the port. I agree with Councillor Force, who has said in the press it was one of the most joyous moments being a councillor, and it was. Anyone who attended that splash in the port, hearing those kids I couldn't get my speech out quick enough because I could see all those children staring at me going, can we just get in there? It was a great, joyous occasion, gorgeous weather as well, and I'm sure all of us would welcome that joy to our city for those children embracing the park. Summer fun events across the city, over 1,000 children and young people access them across the city, which I'm sure we all welcome. On that note, the leader, myself, and the leader of the opposition somehow agreed to get dunked by the big bucket. The chief executive seems really keen on pressing the button. I'm not sure why. It's all for charity events to support the Mayor's charity. It's all in a good cause, so I encourage you, please, to donate. I'm sure it'll be pouring with rain anyway on Friday, just to make sure we're thoroughly soaked. So I hope to see you there. If you're not there, please attend. Please donate to those wonderful charities. Youth Service got a quality mark for the Silver Quality Mark for Youth for Work, and we previously held bronze. We've gone up in our achievements. I want to pay testament to all our youth teams who do that wonderful prevention work that Councillor Foulweather talked about. And another quick rattle through, because we've been very busy as a group. Beechwood Park opening and our Green Flag Awards, over 100,000 to redo the gates to the wonderful award of Beechwood and for Beechwood Park. I visited Action Week with our antisocial behaviour team in the pouring rain on Monday. It's the third visit I've done with them. I walked around the city centre, understanding the great work they do and tackling the issues law-abiding citizens face and speaking to business owners. I've started ward visits. I've been to Killeen, I've been to Bettis, I've been to Liswerry, listened to the members and what they have to say and what they're seeing in their wards. And don't worry, Councillor Routley, I'll be coming around Bishton and Langstone. I'll be coming around every single ward in due course. I think I'm in Marshfield tomorrow. We're also pleased to announce our Winter Wonderland coming to the city with Councillor Evans' free car parking on Saturdays from 16th of November to the end of December. And we'll have ice rating rinks, Councillor Corton, and showing our commitment to the city centre, to our citizens, and coming in to ice skate. I will be partaking, I'm told. So I'll be falling like Bambi, so you can also watch that. The cenotaph has been cleaned. The footbridge, the city centre footbridge is being cleaned. The weather's not playing ball at the moment because any wind, and they're quite high up in ropes, any wind delays procedures, but it is being cleaned. And finally, but not least, the leisure centre, extra 600k to make the leisure centre happen. It will be here in summer 2026. That's all my announcements.
Thank you, Leader. If I can just make a comment on the Eisteddfod. Obviously, when I was Mayor, the Eisteddfod, it's just a word of warning to whoever's the Mayor on that year. You've got to learn Welsh, because I had to open the Eisteddfod and I had to learn Welsh. So, and because it's all filmed by SC4, so you were there, you put it in the front, and I can tell you it took me a month, and I was going to bed with a Walkman on my ears every night just so I could learn Welsh. But they'll be asking you, and they won't let you speak in English on the opening day, I'm telling you.
I only know French.
We know you're French. Right, questions to the Leader? No questions to the Leader? Right. No.
Sorry to interrupt the party, presiding member. And I think, actually, to be fair, on Friday afternoon it's not going to be raining, but we do have Arctic winds coming in, so it'll be nice and fresh anyway. So my question to the Leader is as follows. It is a well-known fact that the Welsh Labour government is anti-motorists. Firstly, we had the broken manifesto promise to build the M4 Reef Road. Recently, we had the first anniversary of the 20-mile-an-hour debacle, which is going to cost billions to the economy, and the announcement Welsh Labour have spent over £200 million on active travel, which hasn't seen any major increases in walking or cycling at all. Looking forward, there are rumours that further taxes are due on the horizon to pay for their pet schemes, like propping up Cardiff Airport again, which is going to cost another couple £100 million. It could be a pay-per-mile tax, something not denied recently by the Welsh Transport Minister, or congestion charging to go with Workplace parking taxes. Whatever the proposals, we all see the chaos in and around our city on an almost daily basis and subsequent stranglehold with both economic and welfare damage. So, my question, can the Leader of the Council give us some reassurances that he will oppose these or any other attempts to cause further disruption to our already overstretched road and city network?
Thank you, Presiding Member, and thank you, Councillor Evans. This council is not anti-motorist. We've just announced free car parking every Saturday over Christmas. I'm very clear the Burns Commission's got to deliver for this city. We're all crystal clear on this. We were promised. The city deserves it. The city's feeling the pressure. I am very, very clear on that. Any congestion charge, I think I've said this before, I will oppose.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Howells.
Thank you, Mr Presiding Member. Earlier this year, the Council agreed to close the Civic Centre for 2 days per week to save money on heating the building. This was despite cross-party scrutiny committee recommendation not to close it right now, delay the closure for at least 2 years while options were explored. At a recent scrutiny meeting, officers confirmed that the £94,000 budget saving is solely related to not having to heat the building. This figure is less than 0.5% of the overall council budget. Members will be aware that the building is Grade 2 listed and comes with significant challenges, but is significantly important to this city. In fact, a recent statement from the Cabinet Member for Infrastructure and Assets gave detail of a 5-year maintenance programme, which includes boiler replacements, roof repairs and cleaning of the clock tower. By closing the Civic Centre for 2 days a week, the risk of further disrepair increases. The building is already struggling. The 5-year programme just keeps the Civic as it is, and we risk it getting worse. This potentially negates the proposed savings and sees the building fall into further disrepair. Moreover, will new boilers mean a cost saving on heating in any event? So is it necessary? Making this decision now will be hard to reverse. Alongside this decision, we have an ongoing customer service review and a public perception issue around our service delivery and ability to deal with customer inquiries. There is ongoing customer focus, and the report clearly shows that we have a cultural problem which we need to tackle. On top of this, an asset management review is currently underway, looking at all the council buildings and how best to use them or dispose of them, perhaps in future. That review could, for example, conclude to close all the other buildings that we have and base all staff at the Civic Centre. If we, for example, we just don't know yet whether that will happen or not, and a snap decision now...
Councillor Harris, you're 2 minutes left, so could you wind up very quickly?
I'll just finish. The question is, does the Leader agree with me and my literary independent colleagues that, in light of the ongoing reviews, the Civic Centre closure should be put on hold until all of those matters are resolved, and that should be funded from the money available from last year's underspend? Thank you.
That decision on the Civic Centre is being reviewed. I am doing it closely with the Cabinet Member to talk about the practicalities and the realities of that decision. That decision was in the previous financial year, but I am reviewing it.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Whitehead.
Thank you, Presiding Member. Leader, I think basically now most local authorities have kind of devolved powers over the speed limits regarding the 20-mile-an-hour speed limits and the roads that they sit above. Are we as a council going to be looking at that, looking at the various roads that don't justify the 20 and go revert back to 30? Are we going to be looking at it at all? Is there a strategy for that? Have you been lobbied for it?
Thank you, Councillor Whitehead. I was just checking with the Cabinet Member how many responses we had. We had 3,500, unless she says I'm wrong. 3,500 responses from citizens. They are focusing on a few roads to revert back to 30. I think your question was relating to how much powers we have on this. The Welsh Government have imposed guidelines, which we can't breach, around what we can revert. We're reviewing all the consultation responses and ascertaining what we can revert back that doesn't breach those guidelines. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Leader.
I got Councillor Bright.
Thank you very much. Maybe the leader could enlighten us more on more activities happening in Newport, promote Newport as a city beyond Wales.
Thank you, Councillor Bright. One of the two main areas of promoting the city is the Western Gateway, which is I don't know if you call it a union of councils in Somerset, all the way down to Salisbury, all the way across to West Wales, working together to lobby UK government for investment funds to do wider projects that no individual council can do, including the Severn Estuary or harnessing energy from the Severn Estuary. I know there's ongoing discussions at UK government about whether this is funded, but that is one of the key plinths by which Newport can leverage its lobbying power to get some energy infrastructure in particular into the city that we can't do alone. So that's one of the ways.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Fairweather.
Thank you very much, Mr. Presiding Member. I'm not sure whether you'll like this question, Leader. Well, Leader, Councillor Mudd is now our PPC, and yet still she sits as a member for the Malpas ward, and I believe taking both salaries, which is double jobbing. However, this cannot be right, and when you consider that the newly elected MP for Monmouthshire stood down almost immediately, and we have a by-election in her ward very shortly, and Monmouthshire Labour Party are in a much more difficult position in terms of numbers than you are, will you ask Councillor Mudd now to do the right thing, stand down and call a by-election in the Malpas ward?
I regularly speak to Councillor Mudd about a broad range of issues, and we always speak about the residents of Malpas, which I know she's solely focused on. On the double jobbing point, we've got to be careful because a lot of councillors work full-time in other jobs, many of whom in this chamber. And I think that should be welcomed in the main because it brings outside experience of people who are bringing, so Councillor Mudd around the police, bringing that experience and expertise around the Police Crime Commission and other areas of work which are important for us to understand and inform our debates going forward. But I regularly speak to Councillor Mudd. Her focus is on the Police Crime Commission and the residents of Malpas.
Councillor Oakley.
Jeepers. I've never ever been called before. Gosh.
It's your lucky night.
I don't know about that. Certainly, anyway, I'm going to be quick. Look, I understand that the city centre is nowhere near where we want it to be. I understand that steps are being taken, and I embrace that as well, and I support that. The business community supports a greater talking up of Newport as well, as you've outlined previously. But I think that we all need to be bold and brave and take immediate action and prioritise this town centre there. We've got lots of little jigsaw pieces coming together there. Can you keep this council updated? Can you include all members of this council so we can find a collective way forward? Put party politics to one side, put the city centre first, and let's get that shining again. Let's really make that a welcoming, opening space. Because at the moment, yes, it's okay at Christmas. Yes, it's okay in the Food Fair Festival. But Newport's more than just Christmas and the Food Fair Festival. It's there for all the rest of the year. So I'd like to see collaborative working within this council to regenerate the city centre. Thank you.
Completely agree with Councillor Routley. That's why we agreed to set up the cross-party group on city centre regeneration. I posed the question by Councillor Morris last council meeting, and I hope you'll be applying to be the Conservative member on that group.
Point of information, Presiding Member, I am the other one on that group.
And I'm quite happy that he's there as well.
Okay. Thank you for that interjection then, Councillor Oakley. Councillor Reeks.
Thank you, Presiding Member.
like the first for me as well, Councillor Rowley. Newport can become a byword for innovation. That's one of the latest headlines from Business News Wales. Business News Wales, of late, they've run some positive and upbeat articles about Newport, and it is really good to see the publications wanting to promote our city. The latest feature focused on the semiconductor cluster as a burgeoning in Newport and the anticipated growth that this might bring. Now, as an observation, in my opinion, whilst the article reads well, there are no hooks to draw people in. There's no reference to the good work done by our business sector, or there's no links to how Newport City Council can further develop relationships with interested companies. If he doesn't already, can the leader look to review such articles and ensure we continue to make the most of every opportunity to promote Newport as the place to be?
I don't review such articles. I wasn't asked to review such article or contribute to the article. I think I'm thinking about the right article you're referring to, Councillor Riggs, but please correct me. I speak to businesses all the time, along with Councillor Clark, and I'll put on record, private sector will drive this city forward. It will not be the taxpayer. It will be the private sector. We need entrepreneurialism. We will need people willing to take risks. And we need those people in Newport and basing themselves in Newport. And I'm crystal clear, and we've got to support them.
Thank you, Leader. That's the end of the questions to Leader, so we move on now to item 13, questions to Cabinet Member. There are 2 written questions to Cabinet Member. Councillor Evans, your question, please.
Thank you, Presiding Member. My question is as follows. There are some good examples of houses in multiple occupation, but these are sadly few and far between. Others blight neighbourhoods with poor substandard accommodation, with overgrown, unkempt frontages, and can change the character of an area with their sheer number. What is the Cabinet Member going to do to reduce and remove poor quality HMOs?
Thank you for your question.
Councillor.
Thank you, Presiding Member, and thank you for your question, Councillor Evans. What I would say is I'm very familiar with HMOs, and that's me wearing my councillor hat and not the Cabinet Member hat. But if I just answer your question, with regards to HMOs, so we've got a number of regulations where we pin down those rogue landlords which you allude to through way of mandatory and additional licensing schemes, which enables regulation of safety standards in HMOs, ensuring that the licence holder and manager are fit and proper. To undertake these roles, the additional licensing scheme for HMOs in Newport has now been presented for a further 5 years, helping to regulate and improve property conditions for residents' health and safety, and is awaiting consideration through the democratic process. Just to add on to that as well, Councillor Evans, you're probably aware of consultation that went out to members, and I believe the deadline closes tomorrow, so feel free to comment on that, and I'm happy to review and take it into consideration. So that this limits the opportunity for rogue landlords, as I've mentioned earlier, to operate in Newport, and officers work extremely hard, and they also have other powers to regulate conditions of all properties in the city. With regards to planning, the supplementary planning guidance provides thresholds to prevent over-concentrations of HMOs in an area with a maximum threshold of 15%. The HMO policy will also be considered further, and that be through way of the replacement local development plan. We've got the deposit plan, which is due, I believe, October to December, and again, that will go out for public consultation. Thank you.
Have a supplementary question?
Yes. No, sorry. Thank you. Standing orders were allowed to respond to. Thank you for that, and I appreciate it is out for consultation at the moment. I do believe actually it should have gone out earlier, but this one isn't currently in should have been done in June, I believe. But there are some concerns we still have regarding it, and I think it was 2008 when we put some additional legislation in there. And I appreciate you've got the the same issues in Pearl. You've got about 60. I think in Oswego we've got about 40 HMOs. The fact is, I think the council have only prosecuted three companies out of the 450, and I know Rent Smart are a separate organisation. So I just really want some sort of reassurances that you'll actually put residents above safety, above everything else.
Okay.
Thank you for your question, Councillor Evans. Just to refer back to your supplementary with regards to enforcement, we are under extreme pressure in terms of budget and resources with regards to HMO enforcement officers, but we have taken steps to mitigate those problems by way of providing them technology, so Service Pros, where it prevents them going back into the office, inputting the data, and then go back out to actually enforce those properties. They're doing that real time now, and so that sort of reduces those sort of issues. Just going back to the enforcements that have been carried out, I don't think it's appropriate for me to comment on particular cases that, with regards to prosecution. However, we are taking every single step to pin down those road landlords, and we are community intelligence-led. So we are asking the community to report those issues through the different channels we have available. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I move on to question 2 now. Councillor Druitt. Councillor Reeks? This is for you, Councillor Druitt.
Is this the question about...
No. It's the question is going to be to you, Councillor Druitt. Councillor Reeks.
I do apologise. It actually sits with me, presiding member.
I got... Yeah.
It was an error. So it went through Democratic Services. It should have gone to me. But I'll be answering the question anyway, that's fine.
Well, which well, I don't...
I'm addressing the Cabinet member.
Sorry?
I'm just addressing the Cabinet member question.
Right, okay. All right. Ask the question, please.
Thank you. Following my continued questions about the local toilet strategy over the last 6 months, the Cabinet member has now confirmed that the strategy has been reviewed in line with Chapter 10 of the original strategy and is available online. Chapter 10 lays out timescales set out by the Public Health Wales Act 2017, which, as we know, have not been followed, and also states that the Council will publish a statement of steps it has taken in accordance with the strategy. Again, this has not been done. The review undertaken has essentially slimmed the initial 16 action plan points down to 14, removing such actions as point 1, which originally ensured that the Council would protect publicly accessible toilets for the future, and point 13, which was a feasibility study about providing temporary nighttime public toilets to reduce antisocial behaviour, thereby assisting the police in their duties. The new action plan simply says that all points are ongoing. Can the Cabinet member please explain why, in the 5 years since it was first published, there has been very little action on this strategy by the Council, apart from removing action points and thereby continuing to leave the residents of Newport in a quandary as to where they can spend a penny?
Thank you for your question, Councillor Reeks, if I may.
I'm just a bit confused because obviously I've got down here that it's Patrick. Okay, I know, okay, I accept that, but I'm just saying what was written down here, okay?
Thank you. I'll start off by saying I think there's 2 things we probably agree on, Councillor Reeks, and that's digital inclusion, I would say, and maybe you're a champion as well for public toilets. But with regards to the delay in reviewing the toilet strategy, it was due to continued pressure on our staffing capacity. The Council only operates a small number of publicly accessible toilets, and provision is heavily reliant on the leisure sector and private sector. The Council is content that despite the delays, the strategy addresses Public Health Wales Act 2017. The duty to prepare a strategy does not require local authorities to provide and maintain public toilets directly. Please note that point 1 hasn't been removed, so please revisit that, just to make that clear. As in the action plan, it remains the same. Furthermore, we are exploring potential options for public-private partnerships as well. Again, just going back to what the leader was saying, we're very much looking to the private sector, and I know you're a businessman as well in your private capacity, so anything you can come back to us on with regards to ideas, happy to take that into consideration. Thank you.
The question?
Yeah. Just to pick up on your point there, Councillor Dan, action reference 1 is still in there. The wording has completely changed. So if you could possibly look into the wording and maybe come back to me at a later stage on that, I'd be grateful.
Happy to look into that, and I will email you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That concludes the business set out on the agenda. The date for the next council meeting is Tuesday, the 26th of November, 2024. I declare the meeting closed.